Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the June 2023 Media Digest, which is coming a few days late, but it's here, believe it or not. And this is undoubtedly going to be a shorter one because I really haven't consumed much this month at all. Out of a mix of like being busy and also not feeling that too good, I guess, in general. And as a byproduct, I also haven't prepared too much for this digest, so I feel like a lot of it will probably be me just reading through notes, a bit less structured than usual, but I guess we'll see. But I don't think I have anything else to say intro-wise, so let's go. First one, Mushoku Tensei. I rewatched this. This was season 1 plus an OVA, and season 2 has just started airing, and it's very exciting. And it's an anime. There was 24 episodes, which includes the OVA, and I started on the 3rd of May and finished on the 3rd of June. And if you want to see what I thought about this, you can go to, I guess, the other videos on this channel where I talked to Kyle Entertainment about it. He was watching it for the first time, and it's a 5 out of 5. This is one of my few 10 out of 10 animes in a growing list, I guess, of 10 out of 10 animes. Maybe I should start dropping them off or something, but this was fantastic. This is my first time watching since I've actually read the light novel. My first watch through was before I'd actually read anything, so I was interested to see if it would hold up or if I'd be noticing all these things that were missing or terribly adapted or anything like that. And there certainly is a lot missing, but it feels like it isn't stuff that really changes the vibe of the story or how it is represented in my mind. So I think it's a very good adaptation, 5 out of 5. But that's really all I have to say. So go watch those videos. But next up, this was one I almost managed to get into last month, but didn't manage to fit it in. But Star Wars Visions Season 2. So if you aren't familiar with Star Wars or Star Wars Visions, this is a anthology series, which means that every episode is its own independent thing, and they're all created by different animation studios, with some double ups. Like sometimes you get, I don't know if it happened this season where you had a studio doing 2, but last season there was 2 episodes done by Studio Trigger. So yeah, 9 episodes from the 5th of May to the 8th of June. And what did I think about this? I loved Star Wars Vision Season 1 because I'm an anime fan, and Season 1, all the episodes were done by particular anime studios. And they were all I watched them all in Japanese with English subs, and it felt like a very authentic anime experience, I guess. This season was a bunch of studios from around the world, as far as I understood. I didn't think there was some pattern. Maybe it is just European studio. No, I think there was a Korean studio. So I think it's just studios around the world, and there were no Japanese studios as far as I'm aware. So it was less anime this season and more just animation in general. And I definitely was not a fan of that. I loved Season 1, and I thought I loved Season 1 because of the anthology aspect and how it gives a particular vision. A particular studio is allowed to kind of represent their vision of Star Wars and portrayed in a self-contained story. I thought that's what I liked about this series. But what I really like about this series is when it's the amount, the merging of Star Wars with anime, and not animation in general, because I'm not really a fan of animation in general. I'm really just a fan of anime. So yeah, I was a little bit seeing these different animation studios. It's fun and all, but it didn't really appeal to me that much, is I guess what it would say. But it was still great. This was a 4 out of 5. I still enjoy it. I think last season probably would have been a 5 out of 5. This season, slightly less, because I'm less interested in the actual animation aspect. But let's see, I have notes for every episode. So the first episode, I should have written recaps or something because it's been a while, but the first episode is called Sith, apparently, is what I got in my notes. And this was, I believe, oh my god, sorry, it's 4th of July today, by the way. So I don't know if there'll be fireworks or anything going on, but Sith. This was a lone former Sith, or Jedi who was almost turned Sith or something, I don't really remember, who was living on a planet and with a droid, and it's a very... I guess the appeal of this episode is the painting aspect, where it's to interact with the Force, you're kind of painting your reality, literal paint, done to the environments and stuff. It's very cool. And basically these 3 Sith come and try and reclaim this Sith who escaped from them, and they're you're going to be a Sith again. But yeah, so what notes do I have here? I say the Sith voice is cool. That's cool. Yeah, there's 3 Sith. 2 of them died pretty quickly. Maybe they were even droids. Maybe they weren't Sith. The main one is really cool, mainly because he has a cool voice. And whenever there's a Sith with a cool voice, I love them, right? Even if they're kind of lame. Like that one at the end of Tales of the Jedi that like does nothing and just like deflates and loses to Ahsoka immediately. His voice was so cool, so he's like one of the coolest characters, all right? But just like in this one, the Sith here was very cool. The painting force, yeah, the painting was very cool. It's like they're leaving impressions on reality by how they are interacting with the force. That is very true. It's a very it's a thing you can only really do authentically, or there's some word I'm looking for, but it only really works in animation. You couldn't really do something like this in live action, which is great when it capitalizes on the medium like this. The robot in this is very cute, kind of like the droids you see in Stray, one of my 5 out of 5s this year, right? Or like Portal, with the things that shoot you or whatever. Cute little design. The line, "You are a Sith Master now," and then he dies. That was really cool. And then the final, I don't have anything else to say really, but the final line in this episode was, "I can paint my own destiny." And it's like quite on the nose. I thought it was still cool, but it's like kind of cringe at the same time. But fun episode. All these episodes are like decently fun, except for one that I detested, but we will get to that. I keep wanting to click to go to the next thing, but it's just one thing. Episode 2, Screech's Reach. So that was the this is where this image comes from, this episode. So I probably should have also written like the studios and what countries they come from. Jesus. Well, that was terrifying. Okay. What does it say? Per MSP, please evacuate area and seek shelter due to incoming weather. All entry gates will be closed and reopened when safe to do so. Oh, I got no idea what that's about. What was I saying? Yeah, so I feel like this might have been an Irish studio from memory. I feel like they had Irish accents or something. Or maybe it's like Scottish and everyone's going to get offended because I like mix the two up. I got no idea. So my first note was... Actually, let me think. Overall, for the story of this episode was... there's like these kids working on a planet, I believe, like forced labor or something, or maybe it's like just labor to get pay or something. I got no idea. And then they go to this cave and they find this witch, basically, that is revealed to be a Sith, a former Sith, basically a Sith master. And this girl, I believe it was a girl, goes and finds it and kills it. Kind of accidentally, but kind of on purpose as well, like a self-defense kind of thing. And then this Sith, former apprentice, now seemingly master, comes, and it gets revealed, basically through their eyes and the way they're like portrayed and everything, that this is a Sith who's come to adopt this this person, our protagonist here, as a apprentice. And it's kind of a twist ending where it's like you expect finally the Jedi or someone's going to come and reward them for dispatching of this Sith, but all it is that this girl is taken away seemingly forever and will never see her family again. And it's a very ominous and sad ending, which is very unique and rarely happens in Star Wars and stories like this. So I thought it was very good. So yeah, what was the production details of this season? Why are they all voice acted in English? I thought they were international studios. That's my first note. I guess that does make sense because it is strange how last season they were made in Japan. They're all anime, and they all have a dub in Japanese, so you can watch it in the Japanese dub. This season, all the voice acting seems to be done. Like it all sounds like it's from the studios that made them, but they're all in English, which is interesting. I wonder why. Like there wasn't I'm pretty sure there was there was one that was about like Indian culture, I think, and I would assume that's an Indian studio. So I don't know why it's not in whatever the language they speak in India and it's in English. I got no idea. But that's my first note. The shrieking witch with a red lightsaber that became a ghost story. Yeah, that was really cool. There were, like initially when you see the witch, you don't know that it's a Sith, and it's just a cool reveal to. It's a cool idea that this like shrieking basically Sith has become a ghost story. Yeah, it's basically, as the note says, straightforward, right? I'm just reading the notes here, right? I'm just a simple man here. Really cool art, animation, directing. True. It all looked really good. Tricked by a Sith holocron in the aim of getting away from this terrible life. Sure, makes sense. So she killed the old Sith. Always two there are, a master and apprentice. Exactly. What a cool design. Yeah, I really like the design and voice of this Sith. The Sith voices, or just like voices in general, I think of like Mother Talzin in the Clone Wars, and the voice I talked about in episode 1, and the voice from Tales of the Jedi. There's just so many cool voices, and how they like modulate the voice and have like two voices, like a low and a high one speaking at the same time. This Sith did a good job of that. I thought it was really cool. And just the design, like the eyes. The eyes are a dead giveaway that it's a Sith, and it's so creepy. And like the single, it's kind of like a MacBook or whatever they call unibody design. That's what I'm looking for. Scary, love it. And a sad ending, very rare for Star Wars. So well done. Then there's episode 3, In the Stars. So this was the one. Oh boy, I definitely should have written recaps for this. So there's I think it's like 2 sisters, an older one and a younger one. And their mum died trying to. Their mum was a Jedi, and the mum died trying to start a rebellion on this planet because the planet's been overtaken by the Empire, who is like depleting the planet of all their resources. So it's seemingly these 2 are the only 2 left of the rebellion on that planet, maybe the only non-imperial presence on that planet. And the episode is about the older sister trying to stay away from the fight and try and every now and then go and get some rations to survive, basically, from the Empire, like trying to covertly do that. Whereas the younger sister wants to be like her mother and wants to save everyone and take the planet back, basically. And the crux of this episode is that the younger sister, when they're on that mission I believe when they're on the mission to go and get their rations, they go too far, basically, the younger sister, and they alert the Empire. They get trapped and everything, and by the end of the episode, they destroy the facility of the Empire on that planet, and I think that's the gist of it. So overall, this was fine. This was one of my less favorite ones, I guess. Immediately, it's I didn't know this. Now I know because I've seen it. But beforehand, it kind of looks like a stop motion kind of thing. But when you look at the behind the scenes thing, it's actually a CGI rendered thing made to look like it's stop motion, which is really cool to see. I think it's like the Lego Movie or whatever they did. But it's in low frame rate, and if you know me, I hate the Spider-Verse aesthetic purely because it's low frame rate, and it also applies here. Anything that is in low frame rate, I don't care if it's like a stylistic choice to mimic a comic book, or a stylistic choice to kind of make it look stop motion. I hate it. It bothers me. It takes me out of it. I hate it. So that was not in this episode's favor. However, aesthetics wise, it definitely looked very good. The lighting was really cool. The atmosphere of this episode was great. The voice acting was not so great. I think the older sister was fine, but the younger sister was terrible, is what I wrote. And I do kind of remember it being terrible, but I don't have the voice in my head to like remember what it was. I can't do an impression for you, sadly, but maybe you can go and look at it. I thought the voice acting was terrible. A big aspect of this episode is also cave paintings and like using the Force, quote unquote. Maybe it is the Force, maybe it's just like the imagination or whatever, but they put their hand on the wall and you see like the cave paintings move, basically, and I thought that aesthetic was really cool. And then I summarized the episode. I said, quite predictable, but a cool story nonetheless. Interesting how it feels like it's directly part of the Star Wars universe with references to the Empire. Yeah, this kind of felt like the first kind of, you could directly place this episode into Star Wars, the Star Wars canon. For the rest of season 1, all of season 1 was basically like its own thing, and it didn't feel like you could really place it anywhere. And all the episodes so far in season 2 definitely didn't feel like you could place it anywhere. This one felt like you could just place it anywhere in the canon and it would fit, like in the Rebellion era. Is that what they call it? The Empire, the era of the Empire. I don't know. And then my final note is how it kind of feels like this is pointless. They destroyed a single facility of the Empire on a planet and they're still alone. And I am certain that the Empire will be back and will kill them. And unless somehow this inspires hope across the galaxy and people come and liberate them or something, I don't know. But it kind of felt like a hopeless kind of... and it didn't feel like it was intentionally hopeless. Like it felt like it was a hopeful message. But practically, it's like, bro, you just destroyed one of their plans. They'll be back, don't worry, to destroy you. Anyway... Now, this is taking longer than I thought. Episode 4, I Am Your Mother. So this is an episode about, it's like a very stereotypical, like you've probably seen this story a million times, where it's like a young girl I think it was a young girl, embarrassed of her embarrassing mother who, when she forgets her lunch or whatever, she'll bring it to her school. And then you contrast that with like this upper class, like stuck up family of like a mother and her daughter who they have the expensive car and they blah blah blah, and in the end it's like the down to earth mother who loves her daughter, they triumph, and they're like the moral of the story, you should love your mother and you should family above all, and etc etc. And you've seen this story before, and this was a terrible episode. I hated this episode, right? Whenever I am I think I'm fundamentally opposed to, like, I find it so repelling or whatever when I see an episode with this message. Like, I hate it. Maybe it's because I've seen it a million times before, but more likely it's just like I hate the idea that just because the mother the mother loves you, that it's okay to embarrass them, and it's okay to and that you shouldn't tell them that they're embarrassing. You should kind of embrace the embarrassment. I just hate that. Like, it's repulsive. Anyway, so, and also the art style was terrible. I hated the art style of this episode. I think it's done by like some, like when I was watching the Blind Wave reactions, they said it was by some famous like place that did some other franchise, but I don't know, I didn't like it at all. But I get, yeah, it's not, it is terrible. I'm not even going to say that it's good. It's terrible. What is this note? I said, holy shit, I absolutely detest this mother. I hope she dies. Oh my god, I really hope this is a subversive episode where the dumb, ugly, overprotective, cringe, lame, cliche family losers get crushed by the snob. So I was definitely on the snob family side. Very frustrated. My god, do I hate this story. Yes, the mum is embarrassing. Just be straight with her. Because a lot of this episode is the daughter being embarrassed of her mum but not telling her to her face. Because, you don't want to hurt her feelings, but, just tell her, and then she'll accept it, and it'll be understanding and all that, and maybe she'll change for the better if you don't want to be embarrassed. And I just hate it. But there was the mini Death Star gag just coming out of the ship of I think it was out of the rich people, to show that they're like evil or whatever. That was really funny, and like shooting at the ship, amazing. That actually made me laugh. So it's not all bad in this episode, all right? Oh no. Now the last note, I said, my god, do I hate working class stories about how great they are and how they're really the good people and everyone should live like them. A simple life is a good life. My god, do I hate it. I don't know if I still agree with that, but I think a simple life is a good life. I think I kind of disagree with that, and that kind of was the message of this story. And whenever I see stories like that, it kind of bothers me, especially with such an ugly art style as this. So that's that. Episode 5, Journey to the Dark Head. So, this was Studio Mir, which is the Legend of Korra studio, right? And I love the Legend of Korra. And this was a very good looking episode. Very traditionally felt like an anime kind of. Like if you had told me that this was like an anime studio, I'd be like, hell, okay, fair enough, this makes sense. But it wasn't. Studio Mir. So the premise, oh man, now we're really pushing my memory. The premise of this episode was you have this I think a girl again, who lives on a planet where they create prophecies for the Jedi or something, or they can create prophecies based on some aspect of the planet. And then they get this terrible prophecy of like war. They don't interfere. It's like their kind of driving goal. It's like, we don't interfere with the war or anything, the ongoing war between the Jedi and the Sith. But this one girl finds a terrible prophecy, and she's like, I need to do something about it. So she goes to the Jedi. The Jedi task this like young Padawan person to go and help her out. They go to this planet with two heads, or her planet, I guess, which has two heads, a dark and a light. And they go, and a Sith follows them there, and the Sith, the goal is to kind of wipe out the dark side head, basically. But then they discover that the dark side head has part of the light side in it, and the light side head has part of the dark side in it, so they can't destroy it. But I don't remember the conclusion of that episode, but you get the gist of it. It's like a big balance is an important thing. Yeah, this was a good episode. I enjoyed this. I guess I enjoyed it mainly for the lore implications, not lore implications, but the subtle planet, I guess, with the prophecies and stuff, and seeing the Jedi Order in this. It was cool, like a really cool kind of story. The aesthetics wise, it probably was the best looking episode. The fights, some of the best animated fights I've probably ever seen in Star Wars. That was all great. The Sith in this episode was cool. So, okay, getting out of the notes. So, a record-keeping planet. That was a very cool idea. The voice actor for the main character was very familiar, and I said, she sounds familiar. Is it Vi from Arcane? But I'm pretty sure it isn't. Like, I looked it up, and it was just some actor I'd just never heard of before. And then in my next note, who are all the voice actors? They all sound so familiar. So I don't know. Maybe it's like a Studio Mir thing. Maybe like I thought it's an animation studio, so I don't think they would like basically I was thinking, is it some Legend of Korra like actors that I recognize? But I don't think so, because I feel like the voice actors would have come from someone else other than Studio Mir. I don't know how that all works. I got no idea. This fight is the best fight in all of Vision so far. The visuals are very cool. Yep, true. The most conventional, and yeah, this is also a lot of the episodes this season are very quirky and very you can see a very clear like oh, this is our Star Wars, all right? This one kind of feels more serious, and it feels more in line with like like a typical story, I guess, where it takes itself seriously and it's very conventional in its like structure, I guess. I guess that's how I feel about it. And I said I really liked it. Cool world building with the heads and the prophecy planet, the ongoing Sith and Jedi war, seeing the Jedi Council, the backstory with Tao. I guess that's the main character's name. Oh no, the Padawan's name, and the Sith. True. Then we got episode 6, which is the Spy Dancer. This was a let me think. I don't know if I can recap this one. There's like a theater or something where the main characters are dancing. And by dancing, I mean like I don't know. It's like a well-known thing. I don't know what it is. You get like fabric or something, and you're like twirling around the fabric. I don't know. I think I've seen that before in real life. And all the people that go to that theater are like the Empire, so you have a bunch of stormtroopers and like higher up commanders and all that. So our main characters are kind of extracting information from them and like having plans and stuff to undermine them. And I believe they work with the rebellion, but maybe I could just be misremembering. But that's the gist of it. And at the end, the reveal is that the main character, the mother, I think, I don't know if she's the main character, but the mother figure finds that one of the Imperials that have shown up, one of the commanders or something, she thinks that it's the person who stole her son from her. But the big reveal is that it's not the person who stole her son from her, it's actually her son himself. So that was cool. So yeah, very cool aesthetic. Maybe the best animation so far, that is true. Yeah, it's not my favorite aesthetic. It was a very cool aesthetic. But in terms of like raw 2D, like movement, animation, choreography, I think this was probably the best. The concept is cool. Aerial performers, that's the word I was looking for before. Slowly executing some plan against the stormtroopers who visit. True. Yeah, the directing was really cool in this episode as well. I can't name any shots or anything, but I do distinctly remember thinking that how there's a lot of really cool perspectives that you see of like the action and a lot of interesting shots. There's also, I believe, French accents, and they sound very authentic. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was actually like French actors or something. Or maybe it's some other country, and I'm just offending all the French people out there. So I don't know. It was a cool reveal, the one I talked about how the son is actually the commander. And now the thing I guess that I really like about this episode is the double cool reveal, which is that after you get the reveal that he's the son, the scene ends basically, and then you get an additional scene at the end of the episode where it's that commander guy who like now knows about his mother and everything, and he's like reflecting, and he looks out the window of a Star Destroyer, I think, and he takes his hat off and takes his like basically the reveal is that his horns that are like part of his species have been cut off, and he's wearing an eye patch to cover up his what do you call it? Heterochromia or something, where you have one eye that's a different color to the other one. And it's like you never get an answer, but it's really interesting because it raises the question of if someone did that to him, if it was the adoptive father that abused him or something to try and make him fit in with the Empire, or if out of self-hatred he did it to himself. Like he chopped off that horn and he wears an eye patch or plucked out his eye or something. It's just interesting. It's ambiguous and it's cool, I guess is what I would say. So I really like that. Then we get episode 7, The Bandits of Golak. So this was a brother and a sister who are on a train basically traveling to go somewhere, and they get the sister gets outed as a Force user basically, so they have to run away. They find this nice village area, not village, I guess it's like a little village area, and an Inquisitor hunts them down. The Inquisitor runs into a Jedi who is also at that facility, that village, and the Jedi fights the Inquisitor, kills them, and then the sister goes along with the Jedi because it's like the Jedi, if you want your sister to be to live a happy life, you have to get rid of her and like send her with me basically. And it's like a weird I don't know, it's like a typical Jedi kind of thing, which I think was shown to be bad in the prequels, but this episode kind of portrays it as a good thing, so I don't know. But yeah, so the first thing to note is that the style of this episode basically felt like a Clone Wars episode, like the art style, very interesting. Apparently it's a completely different studio. This was the one where I'm like, I think it's like an Indian studio, I don't know, maybe it was just like all the accents sounded Indian or something, I don't know. But yeah, basically felt like a very Clone Wars, like season 7 style, or even an Arcane kind of style in a way. The TV show Arcane. Oh boy, my next note. I absolutely hate this girl. So frustrating when a dumb kid reveals their force powers. So stupid. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. If you respect your brother, just trust he's telling you to do something for a reason. You idiot. Yeah. So this was it was quite frustrating because she's using her force powers, and the brother keeps telling her not to, but she keeps doing it. It's like just listen to him. You know. My God. The Inquisitor in this episode was very cool. He uses the Force to kind of threaten, which is always interesting. And he has an actual personality, like he laughs and stuff, and he jests, and I don't know, I like him. It was pretty cool. The slow motion fight with all the random people flying around is cool, but goddamn, this Inquisitor should have just grabbed her with the Force. Yeah, it's like this episode, I guess, is held back by its little frustrations, like what I said about the sister before, not listening to her brother, and also like this Inquisitor just losing the fight because seemingly the plot had to have him lose the fight. Kind of what it felt like. But the resolution was really cool, where the Jedi cuts his voice box, and his voice like sounds really weird afterwards and like scary, and I'm like, ooh, that's really cool. So yeah, that's episode 7. Overall, okay, but kind of frustrating, you know. Then we have the second last episode, episode 8, The Pit. So, oh boy, can I remember this one? There's people digging a hole under the kind of, it seems like, enslavement of the Empire. They dig a hole really deep, and then they like mine and find some rare ore or something, and then the Empire's like, oh, well done, and then the Empire leaves, and they're stuck in this hole. Which kind of sounds like an interesting premise, right? Then one guy climbs out, runs or like walks or whatever, I don't know, to a near. I bring that up because I have a point on that. Goes to a nearest city basically, and tries to get the help with the people there. Then he comes back. The Empire throws him in the hole. He dies, but then the people come and get them out of the hole. So sounds like an interesting premise. But I'm not a big fan of this episode. I thought the directing was the worst of. It is the worst of all of the seasons 1 and 2 Visions episodes I've seen. A lot of just like you get a shot and you pan left to right, then the next shot is like panning right to left, and it's like a lot of really simple like camera movements like that, which kind of feels very awkward and like seems like it was like directed by AI or something, like really boring. I don't know. But let's see. The premise is it's very, yeah, like the fact that they left them down there, when that happens, it is kind of terrifying. It's like, what do you do in this situation? But I feel like it is kind of they undersell it, because it's like being stuck in a hole with no food or water is terrifying, but the people there don't seem very worried. Like my first concern would be like, what are we drinking? Like, are we going to die in like 2 days because we don't have any water? Like, what's going to happen? Are we going to have to kill each other for like sustenance or something? Like, the people down there didn't seem to freak out enough, I guess. That's the first thing. Then I have like this is the question I was alluding to before, but if I had a very long distance that I had to travel and I had no water or food or anything like that, so I had to like conserve my energy, running from city A to city B in a nice flat ground, you know, is it better to walk, which takes more time but less energy, I guess, when you're like traveling, or would you run? Because that way you reduce the time, but then you're like, I don't know, your heart is pumping faster and it's like more energy or something. Like, I just wonder what the answer is to that. I guess we'll never know. It reminds me of the question of like, if you're in the rain, is it better to walk? Because then you're like, the raindrops hit you this way, or is it better to run, where it's like the raindrops hit you from above, but you're also running into raindrops more? And the answer is like always to run, because it's like reducing the time in the rain. But I feel like this is a bit of a different question, because it's like what matters here is the efficiency of your energy usage or something. So I don't know. Question for the scientists out there, right? Then, wow, this is the darkest thing I've ever seen in Star Wars, which is true. They just throw this kid's body into a pit and he dies. And I was in awe. I was like, wow, I can't believe Star Wars did this. What a committing to the bit, I guess. Really cool. And then I said, man, what a cool short story on a cool small world with a pit and a city. Just not a fan of the visuals and the directing. I guess that's basically my takeaway from it. If it was a better directed episode, I think this would be a very good one, but it's not. Then, the final episode, Owl's Song. AAU Song. Owl's Song, whatever that means. Well, that's the character's name. But anyway, I don't even know if this one has a plot. It's like a girl living, like a very young girl living with her dad. and there's this like Jedi, or maybe a retired Jedi, I don't really remember, who like shows up every now and then because the father purifies kyber crystals, and the Jedi want purified kyber crystals. And by the end of the episode, the girl gets stuck in a cave of like unpurified crystals, and they're all like red and evil and stuff. And she runs out of there, and it seems like everything terrible is going to happen, and all this like all the crystals are exploding and the mountains collapsing. But then she sings a song and resonates with the crystals and purifies them all, and they all turn blue and good side. And then the girl goes away with the Jedi. But in this one, compared to the what was it called, the Bandits of Golak, I think this one does it well, where it's like the girl has time to think about if she's going to go, and she like spends time with her dad, and her dad is happy for her to go, and it seems more like a willing journey, and like I'll be back one day kind of story. So I thought that was good. But overall, I love this episode. This was really great. The like just the aesthetics were like beautiful. This is the most vibrant of the episodes. It has a really cute like art style where it's like fuzzy like animals or something, like it's a like stuffed toys kind of. I think that looks really cool. Actually, however, I do have a note on this, which is that when I first saw this art style, like when you see the thumbnail, for instance, in the Disney Plus like gallery, it's like when I see like childish kind of art styles like this, and the one from that episode I hated about the mother, it's like I have I need a better word than revulsion. There's some word where I'm like, I don't like this. Like this is childish, right? I don't like this. But my question I wrote in my notes is, I wonder if everyone is like this, and they're like, oh, I'm an adult, I don't want to see this like kid story stuff. Or if there's people who see this art style and they're like, oh my god, this reminds me of when I was a kid. I love it. How cool. I just wonder if there's people like that. So if you enjoyed this art style, because I guess if your first impression of seeing this art style was positive, then let me know, because that's really interesting. My first impression was negative, but by the end of it, I was like, I love this art style. It's really cool. Anyway, yeah, I loved it because of the art style. I loved it because of the singing, and just like the idea of like these crystals being alive and being tamed by the voice of someone, I thought was really interesting. But yeah, this was also, I wrote in my notes, God, I hate low frame rate things. But interestingly enough, thinking back on it, until I'd read that note, I don't remember it as being low frame rate. The other episode that was low frame rate, I certainly do remember that being low frame rate, but this one just didn't take me out of it as much for some reason. Then I said, might be the best looking episode, honestly. The colorful environments and stuff are great. Yeah, it's probably true. Probably is the best looking one. The singing with the crystals is sick. I said that. And so cool how she purifies the stones by singing. It's visually cool. It's cool to listen to. It's cool story-wise, and it's cool lore-wise about like how the crystals work, with the crystals sentient, and how do the Sith corrupt them. So yeah, that was episode 9. Very good episode. And that's Star Wars Visions in general. Now I have an episode ranking, which is the one in that picture I talked about. I guess you can see like the episodes here if you haven't seen Star Wars Visions for some reason, but that was the one with the girl going under, and I guess I can just read it. Screech's Reach, Our Song, that was the last one I just talked about, which I like. Journey to the Dark Head, that's the Legend of Korra Studio. This is the first episode with the painting stuff. Then the aerial acrobatic kind of episode. Then the one with the sister who's a Force user. Then which one was this? Oh, the pit, the one they get thrown in the pit. Then the one where they're on the planet with the low frame rate and they're trying to steal the water. And then the I'm Your Mother one about the mother who I hate. So that's Star Wars Visions. Next up, RWBY Volume 9. So I guess I should give a summary, all right? It's a TV show, if you've never heard of RWBY. There's 10 episodes this season, which is, I think, surprisingly very short. I feel like there were more episodes last season. Anyway, and I watched this basically in a day or two. 8th of June, and I finished on the 9th of June. So I love RWBY, all right? With one exception. I think there's Volume 5 is not the best. It's fine. It's not the best. And Volume 9 is fine. It's not the best. But I still enjoyed it, is basically what I would say. So I guess the gist is, I don't really care to summarize this if there's people who aren't watching, but I guess the idea is that they're Team RWBY last volume, they got flung off into the void, and the question is, what happens when you get flung into the void? Because the god guy, whatever his name was, told them that don't get flung into the void. So what happens is they get teleported into this strange world, basically, where the rules of the planet or rules of the universe seem to have changed, and there's manipulations of time and all these weird creatures. It's really interesting, the world at least. So yeah. I guess before I go through my notes, which I can go through pretty quickly, hopefully, my general takeaway is that it's it feels very empty. Similar to the Rings of Power, where you have that one city full of people, but it feels like the people aren't really there, and it feels like you got like one character there, and it's a very empty, not very satisfying world. This place they were in, the Never After, kind of feels like that, where it's like you feel like you have RWBY, Team RWBY, in this place, but the people in it don't feel like real people. It doesn't feel very satisfying. Whereas last volume and all the previous volumes in Atlas feels like, even though you don't know any of the characters in the city, it feels like the city is alive and breathing and there's people everywhere. This one didn't feel that much like that. So that's my biggest critique of it, I guess. And there weren't very interesting fights. RWBY is kind of very good with its fights. It's one of the appeals of it. But there wasn't anything. I don't think there's a single fight that I can remember that was like, wow, that was great. Except for maybe the final one with not because of the fighting, but just whenever Nia is on screen, it's great. She has cool quirks of like how she moves and stuff, which I think are cool. But let's get to the notes. All right. So I said, is this another planet from the God Brothers? Is the talking mouse from another planet? Basically, I'm a genius, and from episode 1, apparently, I've realized that this is the planet that the God Brothers were from, and that doesn't get revealed until the end. So I don't know how. You meet a mouse in the first episode, like this tiny little mouse, and he like takes you to a civilization of mice, which can speak, and I thought that was really cool. I like these mice characters. Until he got really big at the end, I didn't like that at all. But I like the small mice. Another random miscellaneous note, in the opening, you get like the 3 transition periods of each of the characters, where it's like when they're younger, they're a little bit older, and then they're way older. And I just wonder if they had to make new models for those old characters, because I know volume 4 onwards they switched to a new 3D modeling software, and they had to remodel all the characters, so they don't really have the models for all the existing ones, I believe. So I just wonder, just for the opening, they have to recreate those old looks of the characters. I don't know. And I said the 3 versions of Yang look almost identical in the opening, which is funny to think about how she hasn't really changed much in her design over the seasons. But anyway, RWBY also sounded pretty different in the early part of this season, which was interesting. I guess her voice has changed drastically from volume 1 to 9 if you do a direct comparison, but even compared to volume 8, it sounded like she was very different. Initially, I was like, did they recast RWBY? No way, right? But I'm pretty sure they didn't. It sounded more like her as the season went on. Then I realized that it's an Alice in Wonderland parody, not parody, but like kind of they're in an Alice in Wonderland kind of world, basically, and they even talk about Alice the character, and episode 2 kind of feels like a parodying of it, where you got like I think it was episode 2 where you got like this instead of the Red Queen or whatever, the Queen of Hearts or whatever, you have this like king guy. I don't know, weird, fine, interesting. I said, I hope they introduce something interesting. I don't know if I can handle a whole season here. How does it tie in with the creator gods and the main plot? Luckily, that does happen. Saves this season. Does Team RWBY become the inspiration for Alex? Oh, Alex, not Alice. In this Wonderland story due to time travel or something. That didn't end up happening. Blake says, I've read so many stories, I never thought I'd be the moral of one. That was really cool. Like thinking of how if you're in a story, your actions are going to have consequences on the people who read it. And it's like, we are the moral in this situation. Like the theme of the story. I thought that was really cool. Then I said, it's definitely related to the brothers. There's a bridge with the left side purple and the right side gold, as we see here. As a side note, the brothers story is like we got, I think it was 2 volumes ago, volume 6 or something, maybe. I don't know. It's really good. It's one of the, like, I don't think have I ever defined this in one of these, but it's something that transcends RWBY in that it's something that is far better than RWBY, and it'll stand on its own as a story. It's really interesting. I love the brothers story. I'm interested to see where it wraps up at the end of the entire story of RWBY. Anyway, I said I'll give this show credit. It makes it feel like this is a different world and the inhabitants belong to it. There's a few times where the characters point out things that are obvious to us humans, but not to them. For example, the concept of a name or the idea that people could live anywhere on a planet and not just in defined biomes. Yeah, they do a very good job of capturing the otherworldly nature of this planet, which in a lot of stories is kind of my critique. Like a lot of multiversal stories where you go to another multiverse and it kind of just feels like our world but slightly different. Um, this doesn't feel like that. This feels like a very different world, and they do a good job of that. Which is funny to think about how RWBY, alongside Rick and Morty, are like the two things that have done a multiverse well, whereas the MCU, with all of its billions and billions of dollars, has not yet, at least. Weiss's speech in episode 4. Oh yeah, Weiss is basically the greatest character in RWBY, right? One of the best characters of all time, right? Weiss's speech in episode 4 about being the one who defined her name was sick. They said Weiss is really the best. It's also somewhat interesting in that the three. Yeah, so first let me talk about that Weiss bit. Weiss has issues with her family. The family has a bad name, but she loves her name and she doesn't want to get rid of it. She wants to, or be defined by it. She wants to define the name herself, which I think is just really cool. And the other part of that note I was saying is that the crux of this season is that RWBY, the character, Ruby Rose, has her breakdown, basically. She's always been the one that has been the moral support of the team. She's always bounced back from many things that she'd struggled with. But this season, it's the three others who are able to bounce back from this predicament, and they're not too down in the dumps or anything. But RWBY is, and RWBY is having a tough time to bounce back. And I think it's just kind of interesting in that RWBY is the one over the seasons who has struggled the least. Like Weiss has had to deal with her family. Yang has had to deal with her family as well, and Blake has had to deal with her identity as a Faunus, and all of these people have struggled quite. Oh, I guess Yang has also lost her arm, right? She's struggled quite a bit, but they've struggled a lot, and through their adversity, they've been able to learn how to bounce back. Whereas RWBY, who never really learned that, she hasn't really faced a big struggle like that. Besides, I guess, blaming herself for Pyrrha's death, maybe. She doesn't have the tools to adapt because she's never had to really deal with it. And it was interesting this season to see her kind of learn how to bounce back from things like this. So I thought that was interesting, an interesting aspect of this season. The OP was great as well. I said that in a note here, I said, I don't know if this OP will grow on me, but it has grown on me. I even listened to it when I read that note again, when I was going over these notes to compile them for this video. I went and listened to the OP, and I was like, yeah, I like this. So it's great. Yeah, I said, I think the world suffers from being empty. True. When another small note, but when Weiss, Yang, and Blake are like miniaturized, I thought that was very cute. Episode 5 was the most interesting so far. So I think episode 5 was the one where they go to the market. Interesting so far. More characters everywhere. The Forger person with the flames behind them, which I guess is revealed to be God, like literal God, not the brothers God, but like God of the entire multiverse or something. Yeah, they were really cool. The fight with Neo and the shadow thing that like twitches around everywhere, like that Ant-Man 2 movie, that was cool. And Jean's reveal that he is this legend in this story, and because of time, he got thrown back earlier than Team RWBY. I thought that was cool. Then we get a payoff to multiple seasons of setup, which is that Blake and Yang finally kiss each other, and they're a couple. And that's been foreshadowed for a very long time. But I don't know, it didn't, I don't think it really, it worked, like it was fine, and it was like, it felt natural and everything, but it also felt like it didn't come at the right moment. It didn't feel like a big payoff to like some conflict they were having, or like, it just felt like, oh, suddenly now we have to resolve this predicament because we're in a mind maze or whatever, where we have to resolve our, the things that are unsaid between us. Like, it didn't feel like a character moment, it felt like a plot moment, which is a bit disappointing. So, I don't know, I didn't feel much. But I'm glad they're together. Now we can finally move forward with the story with them as a couple, Good. Yeah, one thing I really liked about this world of whatever the ever after was the paper people that Jean was looking after, and how, like, firstly, it's interesting in that they just want to die. All right, like they believe in the cycle of the tree, where it's like you go to the tree, you get reincarnated, and you come back as something else, and they just want to die, but Jean won't let them. And the reveal of that is like, very eerie because you see Jean as this like legendary hero initially, but when you get that reveal, it's like he is a villain. Like he is preventing these people from the deaths that they want. Um, it's scary. And then when they like he's distracted for a second in this argument with Team RWBY, and they break the dam and kill themselves, and the entire village dies, and they're cheering as they're dying, and it's like the most hilarious thing ever. I love it. Anyway, Jean wanting to prevent the paper people from dying because he feels like yeah, this was good character stuff because Jean feels like he can actually protect someone for once because he's failed over and over again, especially with Pyrrha, that was the big one. Failed to protect people basically, and now he finally feels like he actually has a chance to protect people, which in this case it makes him the villain because they don't want to be protected, but it is interesting from his perspective, you know, to see him as a character who can protect people now. It's cool. Then I just had this weird theory thing, which is this the world where semblance comes from? Like, is this where the power of semblance is from? Because it is magic, and it is a magical world. And it would explain why Neo's semblance might be stronger here. Maybe all of their semblances are stronger. I got no idea. I don't think that was ever explained why Neo is so powerful in this world. Maybe because it's just a magical world, and her power is like magical, like fabric of reality bending. I don't know. The paper, yeah, the paper people suiciding themselves. Ruby, yeah, another thing is that when in that paper people city, Ruby has an emotional outburst. The first emotional outburst I believe that she's ever had. One of the most serious scenes in RWBY as a whole, where she starts yelling and taking out her emotions on her teammates and Jean, and it's very uncharacteristic of RWBY. And as a concept, it's interesting. It's very cool to see a side of RWBY that we haven't seen before. The problem is that it feels very unearned. Now, I don't know if this is first before I say anything. There's a very similar scene in Doctor Who at the end of an episode called "Kill the Moon," I think it was what it was called, where the Doctor leaves Clara alone to solve a very difficult problem. And at the end of the episode, Clara comes into the TARDIS, and you expect things to be as they always were, but Clara gets very emotional and tears up and screams at the Doctor to get lost and go to hell and stuff like that, like that. It's very uncharacteristic of her, I think. And I never liked that. But on subsequent rewatches, it does fit in with her character, and I have learned to accept it, and I kind of feel the emotions now when I rewatch it. So I do wonder if in this scene with Ruby's outburst, if it does suffer from me binging this season, like a year and a half after I saw the last season, and I wonder if in a rewatch it would feel more earned than it does in this situation. Like it feels. Right now, it just feels like she's getting angry out of nowhere, but I wonder if you track that slow build up to her getting to this point, if it would feel more satisfying and would feel like an all-time great scene in RWBY, which it doesn't at the moment, so I don't know, it's just something I thought about. I feel like that Doctor Who tangent was kind of unnecessary, but you're welcome anyway. This setting feels like a game more than a story. Yeah, that is true. I feel like if you made this world into like a MMORPG open world game, it would be really cool. I feel like it works less in a story context as RWBY than it would in a game. Like there's a lot of very distinct environments and like the paper people, for instance, they were really cool. And the guards that were guarding that auction where you have to you pay in terms of what you how do we even describe it? It's like things that have value to you, like hugs or something. You pay in things like that. That was really interesting, you know, concepts like that. Be a cool game. But we already have a RWBY game, right? And it's not very good. Then my next note is kind of feels like a season of unearned emotions, which is kind of what I ranted about before. However, I do think Jean's emotions, like he has a mental breakdown basically, very similar to RWBY. But I feel like his emotions are kind of more earned, and it feels like it's the show succeeded in that regard to portray him as a broken man. More of a generic kind of note, but I hope that RWBY, the show, has an ending goal. Like, I hope it isn't just one of those shows that will keep going on, like the Arrowverse, which will just keep going on and coming up with new plot threads and issues and go on until the show wanes in popularity and eventually ends. Like, I hope they have a nice ending in mind. But I'm worried that they don't, because RWBY is a very popular show, and I imagine it probably makes a lot of money in merchandise and is probably a big product for Rooster Teeth. And Like it even has an anime adaptation in Japan, and it feels like a big success. And I hope they don't just milk that. I hope there's an ending because it has the potential to be a very good ending, like a very interesting ending, especially with how they set up Salem and the brothers and this world with the Forger, and it's really interesting. And RWBY even now having breakdowns and stuff, I think it's really interesting to see where it'll all go. Okay. The weight. I said the weight of expectations is the theme of the season. Is that true? I guess maybe for RWBY, because the expectation is for her to save the world and be and also kind of push up the people around her and look after them. And I don't know. I guess that could be a theme. I don't know. I don't know why I wrote that note. Yeah, not a single good fight this season. But then I said, "Welp, I spoke 1 minute too soon. The final fight after RWBY is reborn was great." Which I think is what I was talking about when I said that there were no good fights. This fight at the end, basically, with Nero and RWBY and stuff, right at the end of the season. I thought that was very cool. Other than that, no very good fights. I said, bro, Neo's so fucking cool. That hat tip and falling with the umbrella was awesome. It is true. Neo is like the greatest. I think I did a tier list, and she was like one of my 3 like S++ tier characters. Right? We got Weiss, we got Penny, and we got Neo. Right? I love those 3 characters. And it was great to see her more this season. She's just so stylish, and the way she the way she acts, I don't know. She doesn't speak. That's like a thing. If you haven't seen RWBY for some reason, and you're listening to this. I do wonder who will listen to this actually, because I feel like I don't have a single RWBY fan in my audience. But I would be glad to be proven wrong. God, I should make more RWBY videos. All right. That is like my first video ever that I wanted to make. My first scripted video, like many years ago, was a RWBY script about how Volume 4 is actually the greatest thing ever and a big step up from Volume 3. Because at the time, everyone was hating Volume 4, and I was like I wasn't the lone person, but I was talking about how great it was and how it's finally being serious and having an actual plot and like taking more conventional storytelling like approaches. And I have like a very big script on it that I don't think I ever finished. Maybe I did. Maybe I should convert that into like an updated script and make a video on it. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, bro, Neo's cool. Can't wait for her to come back at the end of the show in the final battle against Salem with an army of people from around the world. So that's my prediction. This world, particularly, the Never After. Jesus Christ, the mouse is giant. Yeah, true. This tiny little mouse that we have on RWBY's shoulder the whole show reincarnates, I think, and is like giant and like RWBY size. And it's unsettling, and I don't like it. What else? The brothers, yeah, this brothers, I said bruv, like I'm a British person, oh my god. The brothers reveal was very cool. So basically we know these 2 brothers that are the people who seeded life on Remnants, which is the planet for RWBY. And what we get revealed is that the tree on this planet actually created the brothers. It was their first creation, basically, their first thing that the Forger crafted. And that was really interesting, and how these 2 brothers basically created life on this planet and then went on to seed life across the world and run experiments and see what kind of world they could create. I thought that was really cool, and very ambitious in scope. Like RWBY doesn't have to go this far. They don't have to create a hierarchy of gods and a creation myth like this, but I thought it was very cool to see it. But let's see. Then the world is called the Ever After. Cool. Yeah, so the brothers began to design their own creatures in secrecy. And I said this is an interesting take on the playing God aspect of artificial intelligence. So, because there's a line they particularly say, which is that they realized their creation could do the job for them. So I don't think this is like an intentional, AI is what these brothers are making, and that'll be a good or bad thing. But it was funny to see it in the context of modern day with AI taking over everything. What else? Yeah, this scene, which is why I chose here, because basically I love these brothers, but the image here in the background was really cool when they're stepping through from the creation. I feel like there is something going on here, like some big thematic thing where on a rewatch I'll be like, wow, this is a moment here where they're stepping out. But the music that plays is like the I don't know what the song is called. Maybe it's like Red Like Roses or something. It's one of the early songs in like Volume 1. It's like dun 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 da da da. You know that song? Like that's playing in like a piano version. It's like, oh my god, this is like the beginning of the RWBY universe, and it's so cool. This was a very good scene. I love this scene. Everything with the brothers is just like a 10 out of 10 in RWBY, right? I said this is cinema is my one note for that, right? Anyway. Where will it send us? Is a quote I've written. Not where, but when you are needed most. That was really cool. Yeah, and I said the finale was a standout episode, especially with the music, with the old themes from the show coming back. So yeah, it is interesting how the majority of the season is a 3, but I think the finale might be a 5. Like I really enjoyed that finale. Um, Now I have my second last note. Oh, my last note here actually is a big summary of my thoughts. I think, which is, it's such a shame the earlier parts of the season didn't quite land. The final episode feels like it would have had me bawling my eyes out if I was emotionally invested in Ruby and Jean's journeys. It even got me to tiny bit. Oh, it actually got me to tear up a little bit. Reframing as the curious cat, as having had their heart broken by Alex breaking the promise with them. I thought that was a really cute thing. They didn't have to do that. And the quick flashes to the small acts of kindness that Ruby did to the little mouse will have such a large impact on the world. I don't even know if I've made sense. Basically, there's two things in this grand finale that I love so much. One is the cat. There's a cat that is kind of like a villain throughout the season, or as an antagonist at least. But in the final episode, you get the reveal that the cat is only doing what it's doing because it feels heartbroken that Alex left it behind, basically. Like it broke Alex broke a promise, and the cat was sad ever since. And I'm like, wow, that's really touching. The second thing was about how I think it's the forger is talking to Ruby about how all the actions they've taken so far will have impacts on the world larger than they can ever know. And as she's saying that, you're getting like these flashes to the memories throughout the season and seeing the mouse and how the mouse is like living a happy life now or whatever. Yeah, that gets to me emotionally as well for some reason. The finale was very good in this regard. And I said, it didn't quite land perfectly emotionally, but it's amazing how close it got for how little I was invested emotionally up to this point. So it kind of feels like the finale springs the emotions, like it actually captures my heart out of nowhere, you know, but it would have been even greater. Like this would be an all-time Ruby episode and moment, I think, if I had been invested early on. But anyway, enough rambling, reading notes. That is RWBY Volume 9. Next up, we have Devilman. So this is a very old manga from like the 1970s, I think. 5 volumes, and I read it from the 12th of June to the 16th of June. And this was great. This is a 4 out of 5. If you want to know my thoughts, I did a read-through video with Kai Entertainment. So I read it for the first time, he reread it, and we discussed it for like 3 or 4 hours. And that's on my channel if you want to see it. But yeah, it's just good. It's like a what can I even say? What do I like about it? Why is it so good? It's very distinct. It's one of those stories where I'm like, when I think of Devilman, I think of a particular thing in my mind. Like I don't have I don't see a scene or anything. I just think Devilman, and to me, Devilman is Devilman, and I like Devilman. I'm sure it has something to do with my post-hoc hypothesis thing. I don't know. I'm probably rambling. You got no idea what I'm talking about, but so when I think of why I like Devilman, spoilers for Devilman, all right? So don't listen to this if you don't want to know much, but I think of Rio as Satan is an interesting concept. Satan being not necessarily a good person, but not necessarily a bad person either. And the same with God being portrayed that way. And the fact that God is a character in this story is also interesting. What else do I think of? I think of the interesting pace of the first chapter where it feels like everything is moving so quickly in order to deceive Akira. And I think of the nightclub coming out of nowhere and it trying to, in a meta sense, me thinking, have I been tricked by Rio this whole time? And this isn't actually a world of devils and it is just a nightclub. When I think of Devilman, I think of the bad society being bad, humans inherently being bad people and hunting down the other, basically. I think of that. And of course, I think of breaking the fourth wall and addressing the audience, and I think that's really interesting. Devilman is unique, and it inspired a lot of things as well, which is interesting. So anyway, that's Devilman. I hope I can string all that together in the edit, because you probably didn't see it, but I rambled a lot about why I liked it, why I didn't like it, and what I liked and didn't like, and oh my god. Next up, Vinland Saga Season 2. So this was an anime. I'm sure you've heard of it. 24 episodes, and I started on the 10th of January, if you can believe it, and I finished on the 20th of June. So this would have spanned multiple countries. I started this when I was in Australia, and now I'm in America. But yeah, so if you want to know my thoughts about this season, firstly, 4 out of 5. I thought it was generally very good. Might not be as good as the manga. The pacing was probably the issue, and not necessarily the pacing of the overall arc, but how particular episodes would stretch particular scenes unnecessarily. Like you would say Aina and Thorfinn are walking away into the sunset, and instead of focusing on them for like 2 seconds, which is what you would do in a good series with good pacing, and then cutting away from them, you would focus on them for, say, 4 seconds. And it's like a weird, uncomfortable length of time that you're focusing on this just to pad out the episode. And it felt weird. There were a lot of small things like that throughout the season that bothered me a little bit. It also isn't the best looking thing. There's no particular moments of Sakuga until the very end. There's a few episodes with it. So it's reasons like this that make it don't kind of stand out as a 5 out of 5, but it was still very enjoyable. If you want to know my thoughts on this, go to Kyle Entertainment's second channel, Secondary ENT, to see our discussions with me, Kyle, Bacon, and Mir, as we talked about batches of like four up to 9 episodes, depending on the batch. So yeah, go check that out. And Secondary, I realized, I was thinking about this when I was like planning for this thing. I always tell people to go to Secondary ENT for things because I like collab there a lot. And people probably don't know how to spell that. So you go 2NDARY and then next space and then ENT. All right, that's how you get there. Anyway, I should probably link it in the description, but I always forget. Anyway, next up, Black Mirror Season 6. So I'm sure you've probably heard of Black Mirror. It's an anthology live action series, generally about technology, but sometimes it can just be about anything. So this season had 5 episodes, and I started on the 17th of June and finished on the 21st of June. So overall, let me just say, I love Black Mirror. I know a lot of people have turned on it in a similar way to like people have turned on Rick and Morty for some reason. But I love it. I've always loved it, and the fact that it's an anthology means that I think I'm just never not gonna love it because every episode is different, and it always has the potential to be very good. But this is a 4 out of 5, so I very much like this season. But I guess to go over it, there's 5 episodes for me to go over. Then yeah, so episode 1 was Joan is awful. So the premise of this episode is that you've got a woman who is living her life, and she goes home one day and sees on her Netflix, which has like another name in the universe, but it's basically Netflix, she sees a show called Joan is Awful. And when she opens it, sorry, sirens outside, she sees that it's a replay of her day, played by an actor who is acting out all the events that happened in her day. And obviously you can expect that's very awkward because she's like has secrets that she doesn't want people to see, and blah 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 blah, and that eventually happens. And so that's episode 1. So I did not like this episode. This was fine. It was perfectly passable. Probably be like a 3 out of 5, maybe a 2 potentially. But I wasn't really a fan of this. So I probably should have organized these notes. My first note is, oh no, the conspiracy phone hears what you're saying bullshit. A big part of this episode, there's a lot of, let me see, I wrote a better note about this. So I said this episode is a bit of a mess. It has too many ideas. It tries to tackle the idea of deepfakes, spying devices, terms of service, we live in a simulation, negative social media content, personalized streaming services, and like a bunch of stuff. And it feels like there's way too many ideas in this. Or at least maybe there are, like maybe you could make a compelling story on all these ideas, but it's just not executed very well, I don't think. And a few of them feel kind of incorrect, or like what I just alluded to, like the phone hears what you say, your devices are spying on you. There's like no evidence for that whatsoever, and if it did ever happen, it would be a big deal, so people would have heard about it. And it feels like it's indulging in that kind of conspiracy theory for no reason. And what else? The terms of service, how apparently you sign away your human rights because of you sign the terms of service of Netflix, and obviously that's not the case and will never be the case. And it kind of seems a bit silly, you know. And how another thing about how social media is negative or it's bad for you or something, and how there's this like quote that goes around about, or like idea that goes around about how Facebook experimented with like how to make people more negative or something, and in reality what they did was ran an I probably should have researched this beforehand, but basically they did like an A/B testing thing where some people would have a certain version of Facebook and some people would have another version of Facebook. And what they found was that they were able to make some people's experiences worse by having a certain version of Facebook, but the effect size was like tiny. Like it was like you made them, there was like a very strong statistical significance that they did make it worse, but the amount they made it worse by was like 0.0001%. Basically, it was like it was a very tiny amount. So people see stuff like that, and then they make episodes like this, which is about how social media is bad. So I don't know, it just bothers me when I see stuff like that. Anyway, but maybe I'm wrong, all right? Let me know if I'm wrong in the comments, all right? So yeah, me just complaining about the logic of all this. I said it's an incredibly shallow engagement with the idea of deepfakes and contracts, but I said I should probably think more about it. I said this show should not attempt comedy. The Salma Hayek, who is a big actor apparently, lawyer scene was painfully cringe. Yeah, they tried to like make jokes and stuff. I don't like it. Then yeah, there's a bunch of big actors in this, and it's like the show is going like, look, we have a big actor. This is a big actor right here. Isn't that cool? How we have a big actor? Isn't that like the appeal of this episode? And I hate it. What else? Then just like me complaining about like plot bro kind of stuff, where it's like they destroy this server with like a model on it, and apparently destroying that one server will destroy their entire model and all the work ever, and they'll never be able to remake it or something. And I don't know, it's just, it bothers me. Like if you're a company that relies on this for your entire construction and existence, then why don't you have like backups and stuff? I don't know, but I guess it's like it's revealed that they're actually in a multiverse, and I don't know. It's this episode chews or bites off more than it can chew, I guess. Yeah, I guess my final conclusion for this episode is that it feels like a Doctor Who episode with a very cool concept, but it fumbles the execution, especially towards the end. That's my takeaway for this episode. So then we have episode 2, Loch Henry. So this is a God, why did I have to go? I wish I didn't give a recap for the last one, because now I have to give one for every episode. Loch Henry was an episode about how there's these two filmmakers, basically, boyfriend, girlfriend. They want to make a movie about this small town that had a murder mystery happen in the past, basically, where this guy was like torturing people, and then eventually he got killed or killed himself. And then at the end of the episode, it gets revealed that the mum was actually the mum and the dad of the filmmaker were involved and were the masterminds, I guess, of this murdering like plot, basically. This was a great episode. I know I probably didn't sound like that in the eager recap I just gave, but this was maybe the best episode. I probably should have done a ranking. Maybe I do and I just forgot, but it's just so good. Like the directing was really cool. The plot was engaging. The actors were all great. I thought it was really cool. So let me see. I said, Jesus, the awkward family stuff. It's so great. You have a black American girlfriend, and the black part is important because when she meets the mum makes this awkward joke about like, oh, so were you originally from whatever? And the boyfriend cuts her off. Like that kind of like awkward family, weird humor stuff is really cool. And then when the girlfriend is talking about the cops to the mum, whose dead husband was a cop, and she's like bad mouthing them in like a progressive way where it's like all the cops are bad and all that. That's awkward. And then they're having sex when the mum could hear, like in the other room, and it's like all this awkward family stuff is so great and authentic, and I like it a lot. And the actor for the mum is perfect. Like the way she like twitches her eye and stuff, and she's a really good actor. I like her a lot. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything. Maybe I have, I don't know, but I didn't recognize her, but she was great. Oh, and the friend, there's the boyfriend and the girlfriend. The boyfriend has a friend basically in this like diner, and he becomes like a big character, but he was great. Like he's funny in like a very authentic kind of way. All the characters in this feel very authentic. Like I wonder if it's like who wrote this, like, or directed, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they directed something else that I've seen that feels like this. I don't know. It feels great. Then I had like an idea of like, I wonder if this episode will tackle the idea of how um, the whether the creating a true crime documentary, whether it'll make the victims' lives better or worse. It didn't really tackle that idea, but that was something I thought of early on. And I just wondered which side will this episode come down on, but it didn't really come down on a side. The car ride before they get into an accident was very suspenseful. I thought that was well done, well directed. Then the backstory of the dad is that he got shot, went to hospital, and in hospital he contracted a virus and died in hospital because of it, which is crazy. That's like a very scary thing. But in the middle of this episode, they get into that car crash, and the son is in hospital now, the boyfriend son person, and I just wondered if he was going to get sick, and that would be like the ironic, not ironic, but like the weird cyclic thing of like his dad died and now he's going to die in hospital again. So, but no, didn't happen. Just another weird prediction I had. But enough with the dilly-dallying, all right? The whole reason this episode is so great, and this particular scene right here is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life, is just, this reveal scene is just so great, basically. The big reveal of this episode is that the mum and the dad were involved in the torturings, and they probably organized it, and they had fun in it, basically. And you get this reveal scene where the girlfriend opens up a laptop, and she's like playing this old recording that they made of the fun times torturing people. And you get the mum coming in wearing a mask and like dancing to this like weirdly just normal music, and she's like got a drill, and she's like dancing to the beat with a drill going zoom, zoom, and like doing the drill noises or whatever. And it's so like eerie and terrifying because it's so mundane. It's like it feels like an everyday occurrence for her. How it's like she's at a party, like in a dress up party with a mask, and is dancing with a drill as though she's cosplaying or something as like an electrician. I don't know. Yeah, it's so great because it's so mundane. But let's see, what have I written? The reveal scene with the videotape of the mum dancing to the room is an absolute all-timer scene. It absolutely is. It's terrifying. It's so mundane. Absolutely. It captures the feeling that parents are people. Yeah, because throughout this whole time, you see the mum, and she's portrayed as like this conservative kind of like she's not very open to others, and she seems very stern and like a sternly mother. But in this scene, you're kind of seeing her when she was younger, and she kind of seems like a party person, and it kind of frames her as like a person like the rest of us, not like a mother figure, but just a normal person, and how sometimes these ordinary people can just do incredibly like fucked up things, and how like your parents could have been different people in the past and you'd never know. It's just very scary. And yeah, the music is a big part of it as well. Like the music in this scene is like it's just like party music. Like you could hear this at any party. It's great. I said it's like the mum and dad are at a party and are having fun, like it's an everyday occurrence that they're torturing people by drilling into them. So yeah, this was great. Love this scene. I've rewatched it plenty of times, right? It was so cool. There's no like gore or anything. It's just like the implication of what's going to happen, which is so great. Small miscellaneous note, but the son, boyfriend, main character person, I wish I had his name, but I don't. He's in hospital because of the car accident, and I just never considered that if you're overnight in a hospital, they probably turn the lights off in the hospital, and that's like a scary thing when you're alone in a hospital and they've turned the lights off. I don't know, I just never considered that they would do that. Kind of goofy when the girlfriend dies, like she basically slips on a rock and hits her head on a rock and dies, and I'm like, okay, that's a bit unnecessary, but kind of goofy. The mum is great, the nervous tick of the eye blink, and when she yells cunt repeatedly when she's alone. True. The mum is such a character. The mum is probably the best character in this thing. It's so interesting. Kind of meta. We're enjoying watching this story at the expense of the main character's life. Sure, makes sense. And another great reveal at the end is how the main character, the filmmaking boyfriend, son, I'll keep adding these terms, he's sitting in a chair alone, and he's holding the basically the mum, before I've left out so many details. If you haven't seen this episode, I don't know what you're doing here, but the mum basically kills herself when her secret gets out, or is about to get out, even though it's not out yet, but she knows it's going to come out, so she kills herself. But before she kills herself, she gets all the evidence of like all the crimes she's committed. She puts it on like the dinner table, and she leaves a note on the top. And you don't really see the note, what it is, until right at the end, when you got the guy sitting alone in his like dark room, and you see that the note says, "For your film, mum." and it's like, Jesus, like the mum, despite how terrible she was, she still loves the son and wants to give these terrible things that she did to him to make his career better. And it's like, what do you do in that situation where it's like your mum clearly loves you, she was clearly a terrible person, maybe she regretted what she did, but she did those things and it's terrible. It's like a big oof moment where you're like, oof, like what do you do in this situation, you know? Well, what a mix of emotions you'd feel on seeing a note like that. But anyway, that was, what was it called? Loch Henry, episode 2. What an episode. Okay, then, I have very few notes for this episode, but episode 3, Beyond the Sea. So, let me do my classic summary here, right? Let me think. You got 2 people. They're in space. In like a space, like the ISS. So they're in like this little, like, not international, this little space station orbiting Earth. However, they have avatars that they can connect to that let them experience time on Earth. So basically, their actual bodies are in space on that spaceship, but whenever they go into their little pod, they can connect to their like robot avatars, which just look like them and act like them and all that, which they can control back on Earth, so they can be with their families while they're forever living in space, basically in the space station. So the premise is that there's a like religious cult basically that hunts down one of the characters who are very anti like robot and anti like they're very religious and all that, and they believe that this person who isn't alive, who is living on Earth, should be killed, and they go and they destroy his avatar and they kill his wife and kids, and it's a haunting scene, and it's done very well. Like there's trying to think, there's 2 scenes I think in this season which are like really great scenes. One of them is the murder that I talked about with the mum going in and torturing the people with the drill, well, not almost torturing them, just that scene is really great. And the scene where the guy's entire world is literally spinning upside down in the directing when he's being killed and his wife and children are being killed as well. That was a very well done scene that I loved a lot. But yeah, so that's the premise. And basically the guy whose family died now can't go back to Earth because his avatar is no longer there. So the other guy offers for the guy who lost his family to use his avatar so that he can spend some time on Earth every now and then. And eventually the guy like develops feelings for the other guy's family and wants to take over his life, and but because he's refused and he isn't able to do that, he ends up killing his family, and both of them have to now work together on the space station alone, basically. Yes, terrible. But this was a great episode again. Just in terms of like sheer production as well, this was very well made. Like I could easily see this being a movie in terms of quality and all that. But let's see. Note 1, they kill his family, the danger of religion, the story really committed, it's truly an unbelievably terrifying thing and terrible thing to happen to someone. The way it was shot and directed was amazing, so I've already said that. So this was an episode set in the 1900s, which is an interesting quirky detail. I think it was the 1900s. Basically, you got the spaceship, which is, you'd think, the future, but on Earth, and you got like this future technology of the avatars, but the world is like old, like 1900s. They don't have cell phones or anything. It's like a weird, interesting, anachronistic like universe. I don't know why they did that, but it was cool. Oh, I guess I did make a note of how I wonder if it's a commentary on technology progressing too quickly for society to adapt. That could be a thing. Because the whole reason this gets set off is that there's this religious cult who hasn't had time to adapt to technology like people of today. So they go and kill this guy because they think it's like a sacrilegious thing, you know? What else? Basically when the guy whose family died, when he goes into the other guy's avatar and goes down to see his family, the other guy's family, they agree not to tell the son that the guy in the avatar isn't his dad. And I feel like that's a big mistake. Like that would just if you see, like, it'd just be weird. You should absolutely tell the son that the person in the avatar is not your dad right now, but they never tell him. Anyway, I feel like we're heading toward the guy killing... Oh, Aaron Paul. I guess I should also say one of them actors was Aaron Paul, who's, you know, Jesse in Breaking Bad. Anyway, I feel like we're heading toward the guy killing Aaron Paul and pretending to be him. The wife will be fine with it because their marriage isn't happy anyway, and the kid won't know any better. That didn't end up happening, but it was a possibility. It would be really cool to see David go into the machine and... Oh, yeah, so... yeah, I guess this is what they do eventually, but yeah, so basically it was cool to see where you see David go into the avatar, he goes to the real world, he does something and we don't get to see it, we just see him go into the avatar, and then he comes back, and then we don't know what he did, and then the reveal is that when Aaron Paul's guy goes into his avatar, he sees that his family was dead. I thought it was well done, really cool. But yeah, overall felt like a really solid sci-fi film, I agree with that, and then he kills the family at the end, so they have to live together or they will both die. Makes sense. Cool episode. Then we have episode 4, which I have very few notes on, but goddamn, let me say this was the biggest turnaround from starting the episode. I was like, this is like, I don't think I'm gonna like this episode, to absolutely loving this episode. All right. So let me see my first note here. There is absolutely zero chance that this episode will make me feel anything toward famous people. Boy, do I not care about the plights of the rich in popular media. And I still stand by that, but that did not end up being what this story was about. I'll get to what it's about, don't worry. So I said there's a few this is a general thing about Black Mirror, which is that throughout this season I noticed that they have a lot of famous songs being used, like obviously very copyrighted music being used, and I like it. Like, I appreciate it when it's in there because I'm like, oh, I know that song, it fits well, cool vibe and everything, but I imagine it's very expensive to license these things, and I wonder why they did it. Like, why did they put the effort to do that? Or maybe Netflix has deals with these like artists, I don't know, but it was cool. But all right, let me explain the gist of this story. All right, so we got this woman, famous actor, and one night she's trying to learn her lines, but she takes drugs and she goes and drives and she hits someone and kills them, and she's like freaking out and she's like, she doesn't know what to do. She goes back to her house, and she basically bunkers down, and people are like, she calls in this like celebrity doctor guy to help her cope with her PTSD, and they try and like, she obviously doesn't want to get caught for what she did, and she's dealing with it, and our main character is basically part of the paparazzi or whatever, and they're trying to get photos of her, and it's like a big reward basically. It's like, oh, you get like $30,000 or something if you, or maybe it was only 3,000. It was a big amount of money if you get pictures of her. So they try and hunt her down basically, and it feels like the message of the story is one about how like, oh, the paparazzi are terrible and they're like hunting down this poor girl who's suffering with PTSD because she accidentally killed someone. And then maybe the other thing is about how celebrities get away with like killing people because they're like so wealthy and all that. You think that's the other thing. But eventually they hunt her down. She like gets taken away by this like celebrity doctor to this like fancy retreat place, and they like hire out the whole building so no one bothers her and she can like relax for a bit, and like cope with her PTSD alone for a bit. And the paparazzi people find her, they break into the place to try and get photos of her so they can get the money, and they see that she's tied up and these people are torturing her basically. She's like chained by the neck and she's like tied to a bed with all these chains. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? And then there's this scene with like flashing photography and it's like stunning and you can't see anything, and then she tells them to get out, and she's like, get out, this is like dangerous, get out. And she looks up and you see the full moon, and then she transforms into a werewolf, and I'm like, what the hell? I can't believe this. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was just the greatest moment of all time, right, in cinema. This is peak cinema right here, where I've always wanted a story to do this, where it's like, it feels like it's going in one direction and then it like jumps the shark and goes a completely different direction, fully embraces the weird and craziness of it, and it recontextualizes everything you've seen before. Like, all the stuff I was telling you was all fake. Basically, she didn't run over someone. She accidentally hit like a werewolf and got bitten by it and got turned into a werewolf. And she's not coping with PTSD. She's coping with the symptoms of turning into a werewolf every whatever moon cycle, whenever the full moon happens. And it explains so much of like all these weird details that didn't really quite line up. It's so cool. And basically she turns into a werewolf, and the rest of the episode is like basically a horror movie where you're trying to run away from the werewolf, and eventually the werewolf kills everyone except for the main character, who shoots her in the head and kills her. But man, that was great. I thought it was a great reveal, and I love this episode. I'd love to show this to people who don't know anything. It'd be really fun. But let me see, I only have like 3 notes. So the scene of her stressing out at night and thinking about the blurry memory of her killing the guy is horrible. True. Like horrible in a good way. Like, it's really well done. The vibe and music feels like they're setting up a horror movie ending, and boy, they did there. And then I said, holy shit, a werewolf. I actually cannot believe this. This is awesome. And I stand by that 100%. So yeah, that was Maisie Day. A very cool episode. I love that episode. I do wonder, like, I haven't looked up particularly for that episode what people thought about it, because I just know it's going to be people complaining about how, like, bad it was or cringy or something. I loved it. It is a great episode. Um, all right, so now we have, excuse me, episode 5. So the final episode of this season, Demon 79. This was the best directed episode, let me just say, of this season, and I found out why at the end. We'll talk about it. But the premise of this episode is basically like, you've got a girl who lives in a lives basically in a bad. It's a poor person basically, and she works in like a shoe shop, and this is back in the old days, so she's like being discriminated against because she's a woman, and she's like I don't know if she's an immigrant, but she's not British, like I don't know what nationality is, but it's basically like a racism angle of this and how anti-immigrant sentiment and all that is like at a high. But the premise is that she finds this like totem basically, and when she picks it up, she makes a deal with a devil basically who shows up, or demon, I guess in this case, Demon 79, who then says that if she wants to stop the apocalypse, she has to kill 3 people basically. Otherwise, there will be a nuclear apocalypse and everyone will die, and all of London will be set on fire. Well, I don't know if it was London, but all of somewhere in England. The whole world basically will die if you don't kill these 3 people. So she goes on, she kills the 3 people. There's ups and downs and struggles and strife, and eventually she fails. Actually, she doesn't kill the 3 people. She fails at killing the 3rd one, and then she gets imprisoned, and or she kind of gets imprisoned, and the people interrogate her and be like, why were you doing these things? And she talks about how there was a demon and all that, and she shows the totem, and it's not like a totem at all. It's just like this empty white piece of thing, white piece of plastic or something, and the reveal is that there was no demon, and she was just imagining things and killing these 3 people for nothing. And then the police officers step outside, look out the window, and a nuke is flying over and blows up London. And it wasn't fake. She actually was seeing the demon. And the final shot is like the demon and her walking to hell together. Well, not hell, but like into an eternal void, because they can live in that void together and not be alone. And generally, this was a pretty good episode. I enjoyed it. So let's see what notes I actually have. So I said, this feels special, like a movie or something. And I said, who directed this? It's great. And yeah, we'll get to that, who directed this. So I said, it's interesting that there's 2 period pieces this season. So yeah, it is interesting. This was set in the 1900s, I imagine. And so was that space episode, Beyond the Sea. I didn't comment on that title as well. Beyond the Sea is a really cool title for like being in space and all that. Anyway, this episode is also... it has interesting lore stuff about the Black Mirror universe in general, because you've got the white bear symbol, which is the totem symbol for the summoning of the demon. So it kind of ties in with like where that comes from. And we also see, like, when you see the future vision of the politician who will go on to rule the world, you see that he's the one that leads to the Metalhead robots coming in, which Metalhead is the best episode on Black Mirror, right? Fight me. But yeah, you see that it's one universe, and it's like, oh, that's really cool tying in stuff, which who cares? Like, it's not a big part of Black Mirror, but it's fun seeing little hints like that. One frustrating thing is that when you probably saw if you listen to my Star Wars Visions bit, I hate when people are frustrating and annoying. When the girl first meets the demon, she like refuses to accept that he's real, and she like doesn't listen to him and doesn't ask him questions or anything, and it's very frustrating, but luckily it doesn't last for too long, so it's fine. Then I said that she is stupid because the first person she kills is because the demon tells her that this man is going to traumatize his like daughter and like rape her or something, and she kills the guy having seen the vision that the demon showed her of like how this girl is going to die and he's a terrible person, but she doesn't confirm it. Like, she doesn't ask him like, is this your name, like, are you this person or whatever? And I'm like, Jesus, she just killed this person out of nowhere. Like, what if the demon was like deceiving her, and like, Jesus. But that was crazy. That's like another element of the main character being a bit frustrating, like a bit dumb, but it's not too bad. The demon in this was cool. It's like he doesn't feel like a demon. Firstly, he appears as a demon, like a really demonic kind of appearance, but then he like takes on the appearance of someone he sees on the TV that the girl likes, just so he can be like more appealing to her. And he feels very human across this. Like, he has a typical accent, like I think it's a British accent, but basically he just feels like an everyday guy. That people can't see because it's a demon, only she can see him. But Yeah, so my note is that the demon trying to convince her that she's a good person because the person who can carry. Oh yeah, he basically says that she's freaking out. She's like, "Oh my god, I killed a person. A demon is here." Blah blah blah. And he like tries to console her by saying that it wouldn't work if you were a bad person because we need to find someone. We can only make a deal with someone who's corruptible, basically. So you were a good person, but you can become a bad person. And that's funny because it's like you don't realize that being corruptible means you're, you're not necessarily a good person because you'll become a bad person eventually. So that's funny. I said the demon does also feel very otherworldly, like the way he talks. Although he sounds human, it feels like you're wearing a human face, even though you're not really a human, because he says things that feel like very otherworldly. I guess is the best way. Like I said in my note. More of my frustrations with I don't know why I wrote so many frustrations because looking back on it I don't feel very frustrated about this episode, but I said, god, do I hate when the protagonist doesn't ask what the incentives are, because basically the angel is telling her, oh, you have to kill, you should kill, whatever, and she never asks like, what do you get from this? Like, why do you want me to kill these people? Like, how do you benefit? Why do you care if I kill these people? Which to me is like the first question I would ask before I did anything. But yeah, anyway, I said, like, he obviously wants her to do these things and not get arrested, but why? Like, ask him what's in it for him. And eventually we get the reveal that it's not really a reveal, but at least he says that he's doing it because if she doesn't kill these three people, he'll get sent to this eternal void forever, which I guess does end up getting revealed, but it just takes too long to kind of get that reveal. She should have asked that way earlier. Anyway, the demon talking about all the people's backstory and terrible futures is cool. Yeah, the concept is that whenever they're choosing victims, the demon can kind of show her like what's wrong with these people or why they like what's bad about them or like why they're worthy of killing. And you get like visions into who they are. That's a cool aspect of this episode. I said there's also an anti-immigrant theme going on in the episode, but I don't really know how it like ties into the larger story, and I can't like think of like a conclusive message or anything. So I think it's just like just an aspect of the world, which was interesting, but not particularly that interesting. It's a prequel to the Metalhead universe, like I said before, where the robot dogs take over. That was cool. I don't remember this at all, but I said, what a cool soundtrack for when the politician guy crashes his car and she goes to kill him. I don't remember what it is, but apparently it's cool, so go have a look if you want. The sequence of when the nuke basically goes off and they're walking into the hallway to go to the eternal void, and the place like becomes more white and bright, and I thought that was really cool. Just the directing, I didn't really like write any notes on particular shots or anything besides this one, but the directing in this episode was very cool. It felt very cinematic and very special compared to all the other episodes this season. And then finally, my second last note, Toby Haynes. That's who directed this episode, which is a name I am very familiar with, and I wrote some of my favorite things he has directed, which is some of my favorite things of all time, which is a bunch of Doctor Who episodes. So A Christmas Carol, the best episode of Doctor Who, The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon, which are also some of the best looking episodes of Doctor Who, my favorite episode of Sherlock, which used to be one of if not my favorite episode of all time of anything, which is the Reichenbach Fall. And he also directed 6 episodes of Andor, which is a really good looking show and very well directed. So Toby Haynes, no wonder this was such a great episode, like directing wise. He's a great director. And then my final note was, Jesus Christ, the Black Mirror community are idiots. Because I did look up what people thought about this episode and a few of the other episodes. And it's just a bunch of nitpicks from like people who care about plot elements and like really small nitpicks that for me, sometimes stuff like that bothers me. You've probably seen it in a few things I've talked about, but generally I didn't vibe with them at all. And I was hoping to see some more interesting like takes in the community, but not really. So Black Mirror community, you disappointed me, right? But that's Black Mirror season 6 overall, really great. Next up, we have The Smash Brothers. So this is a 2013 documentary series, which has 9 episodes. It's on YouTube. I feel like that's where it's officially released. Like, I don't think it's like a pirated thing or anything. I think it's just on YouTube. And I watched it from the 23rd to the 24th of June. And this was recommended by Jarky Bacon. I should have mentioned at the top of this episode, but I didn't really do many... I didn't consume much this month at all, but I also didn't do very many recommendations, but I'll definitely do that next month. But anyway, so let me think. So I don't know nothing about Smash, right? So I actually wrote a note about this. So let me read it out. So first, I said I have no idea what this is. I assume it's not made by Nintendo because I know that Nintendo doesn't really like fan made things. And I said based on the thumbnail, it looks like it's about the competitive scene. Is this a YouTube series? And so the answer to that is I don't think it's not a YouTube series. It's like a documentary thing made specifically as a documentary. And I guess it was about the competitive scene, so I was somewhat close. But I guess before I go to my history, I should say that generally, for how much I don't know about Smash, I thought this was great. So this is a 4 out of 5. I now that I like have watched this, it's funny how I didn't know any of these 7 people before, but now I at least know their names, which is interesting. So I feel like the documentary achieved what it wanted to achieve in that I know a lot more about the Smash scene now, at least in the past. So it was really interesting. Um, yeah. So my history with Smash. So let me read this out. I played it when I went to a friend's house in primary school. So a very long time ago, and I always had a lot of fun basically. So I would play Kirby because the Kirby can eat people, and I love when you can do weird things like that in games, like broken abilities. I love it. And when I looked it up, it said that the version I would have played is Super Smash Bros. Melee, which I believe is the version that this thing is about. So that was really cool to see. Particularly for the GameCube. I think it only got released for the GameCube, but yeah, so my friend had a GameCube. I didn't have a GameCube, so I never played it. But I used to play it then in high school. I said I've also played it at various parties over the years, and that would be Smash Ultimate, I think, the newest one. And I hear that Blind Wave always talks about it. I hear Blind Wave always talk about it, which has made me always want to play it. Like if anything would get me to buy a Switch, it would be Smash Brothers, just because I hear Blind Wave talk about it so much. It sounds so fun, and the stuff I have played in the past has always been so fun. Like I would be willing to pay a lot for it. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe one day it'll happen, but I don't know. We'll see. But so next note. This is about Ken, as in Isaiah, I believe was his name, Korean DJ, PC Chris, Mewtwo King, and Mango. So those were the 7 people, and it's interesting because I do like know these names now, which is weird to think about. When I wrote this note, I had no idea who these people were. My first note is that I definitely need to rewatch this. So I was very bad at, like, generally when it comes to consuming media, the first watch through for something, I am pretty bad at tracking characters and character names and all that. And I generally won't know any of their names unless I write notes, and I'll just think of them as their descriptions, like, oh, the black hair guy, the younger sister girl person, like stuff like that. But now that I've seen the series and I know all these people, at least roughly in my mind, I think I would appreciate it more if I went back. And now that I know these people, I can track all the details in their stories that I missed the first time. But anyway, I don't think I'm going to rewatch this anyway. Maybe not till like a year from now or something. So I guess we'll see. But have I said my overall? Yeah, overall thoughts is. Let me just go through the actual notes now. So episode 1, you get the stories of Ken and Azin. Azin, I think is what they called him, from the west and the east coast of the USA. So that was really cool. And I said it's quite engaging hearing about them, but more so than their story, I think the way they portrayed their personalities was really interesting. So like you have Azin, who is portrayed as being like a very quiet genius who can master any game, basically. And then you have Ken, on the other hand, who is already in the documentary. Like he's speaking to the camera, whereas Azin isn't. And he seems kind of like to have a bit of an ego in a good way, like not like a negative ego, but like, oh, he has a bit of an ego. And he seems quite competitive. And like wanting to prove people wrong, basically. Like it's really interesting portraying, like I think what this does well is portray the personalities of these people very well, more so than their stories, which I was hard to keep track of a little bit. But that was cool. I am looking forward to see their first interaction. Why is Azin not in this documentary? Did he have a falling out, or did he die or something? I was surprised no one died. I was waiting for the reveal of like someone died and that set off the scene stopped happening or something because someone died, but no one died. But I guess he just wasn't in it because he's not very talkative or something. I guess we'll see when we go on these notes. But that was episode 1. It was fun. Episode 2, the US-Japan first tournament was cool. Azin becomes the best in the world after beating the Japanese Captain Jack. I guess I don't have much to say about that. Episode 3, we met Isaiah. He's very camera shy, so we only hear his voice via the audio. Kind of weird not to address this in the... Yeah, I guess it was weird, because when they're talking about Isaiah, and I'm just thinking, like, is he dead? Like, why isn't he here? What's happening? And it is weird that they never address, until later on, why we're not seeing him. Like, I think that the first thing they should have said is that, oh, he's like camera shy, we can't get him for the interview or something. I don't know, but they eventually say that. But anyway, one criticism I have pretty consistently across this whole thing is that the timeline is like very unclear. It needs to be established way clearer in this. Like, what did I write? I said, I feel like in episode 3, they refer to 2012, and now in like episode 4, they're referring to 2003. And I'm like, why are they, like, what's going on? Why are we going back in time? Like, what actually is the timeline? Like, what year did these people start playing at? And how long did they play? And how long was the scene been going on for? And, like, when was the game made? Like, there's a lot of details that, they just leave out that I think are pretty important for people like me who don't really know much about this scene. So let me see. How old were the play? Yeah, how old are these people? I got no idea how old these people are. Are they teenagers? Are they like? So I know they said some of them are like in their 20s or something. So I feel like we need a better profile of like who these people are. Like, give us more descriptions about their actual like age and stuff like that. I don't know. How old are they now? When did Smash get big? When did Smash come out? How long ago were these events compared to when the documentary came out? Stuff like that needs to be a lot clearer. Episode 5, PC Chris comes in, who is a newcomer from the East Coast, and he's very laid back and cool. And then he beats Ken, the national champion. So that's episode 5. I don't have anything to really say there. One thing to say is that Wife, who's one of the who's a good Smash player, but he's also one of the people in the documentary who were talking. He makes he's a very good like speaker basically in the context of a documentary. He's very serious and professional in the things he says. Unlike all the other people who seem kind of quirky and like nerds kind of, he seems kind of like very serious and professional. And I thought that was a good note for me to make. But then I went to the end of the series and I read the comments on the final video, and everyone was saying that. They're all talking about how, oh, Wife is so great, and he makes the documentary feel legitimate. And I'm just like, God damn, I just had the same thought that everyone else had. But anyway. Another critique is that the character, basically I treat these people as characters, right, in the story that is the documentary. And there's a female Smash player who suddenly gets introduced but doesn't actually get introduced. Like, she basically starts talking and I have no idea who she is. Is she a Smash player? Like, is she related to one of these people? I got no idea what's happening. And she shows up every now and then, and every time she shows up, I'm like, who is this? Or why are they talking? What do they have to do with anything? And that happens. There's like a few characters like that throughout this documentary. Like, there was one guy with an Australian accent, but I'm like, who is this? Like, where's he coming from? And by the end of the entire documentary, I still don't know who these people are. So I think that's one thing it needs to do, is like establish these characters better, or more like clearly initially. Throughout one of these episodes, we get the reveal that Ken and PC Chris, they have a tournament, they verse each other, and then they never verse each other again. And I was just wondering why that never happened, but I guess we do eventually get the reveal that PC Chris just stopped winning. Like, he got worse, or maybe he didn't get worse, but like the competition got harder, and he just didn't end up getting to those finals again. So that was interesting. Then after the 2006 season, Melee is dropped from the MLG Pro Circuit. That was a crushing like reveal when I heard that, because it's like there's just really nothing you can do, because if Nintendo isn't happy about it, then they're just not happy about it, and they're gonna try and take you down. But I guess that got reversed eventually. But wait, did it get reversed, or am I thinking of something else? I don't know. Well, I'll judge this on a rewatch, and I'll let you know what I think. I don't know. The girl talking about Nintendo cutting out the competitive aspect of the game when making Brawl seems kind of silly. The competitive scene has got to be a tiny part of Smash. Yeah, that was interesting. I don't know. I wonder. Basically, she was talking about how we don't like Nintendo. Why are they doing this? Don't they realize that the competitive scene is what is carrying Smash, and without it, the game is going to die or whatever. And to me, that kind of seems ridiculous. It certainly, like, I feel like the Smash community is a tiny part of why the game is popular, and it's just popular because it's a very fun party game, and you can like play it at any party. I don't know. And then my general, more like extrapolated note here is that I am rarely sympathetic to the plights and complaints of gamers and niche communities in general. Like, when she's complaining here about how why don't you value the competitive scene? And to me, I'm just thinking this is a very niche issue. Like, why should people care about this is basically what I'm thinking. So the documentary didn't win me over in that regard, right? But yeah. One thing I wish we could see, which obviously we can't because this came out in 2013, is how all of these people would react to Smash Ultimate. Because I know that was like a big thing, and it's like the best game. It's got the most players and most like characters. And when you look it up, I looked it up, like what do people generally think about it? And apparently it's like the best of all the Smashes, and everyone universally loves it, and it's better than Melee and Brawl and all that. So it would be cool to see what all these people think about it in like a compilation of like what are their thoughts. Anyway, I guess we'll never know. Another general note about like something I took from this documentary is that it's interesting how socially weird and strange all of these people seem to be. Like you figure there would be like even PC Chris, like he is portrayed as like the coolest one, but even he seems kind of strange and not like the most like socially really cool guy or anything. Just compared to these people, he seems pretty cool. And to me, it figures you'd have like at least one normal person who's just like an average, like not very, he doesn't have a big like personality. He's just an average guy, or girl. But there's nothing like that. And yeah, it's just surprising. Like maybe it's a product of the fact that this is the early 2000s. Maybe these days the competitive scenes have a lot more normal people, but yeah, it's strange. The documentary really gives you a scene. No, the documentary really gives you a sense that this is a nice, tightly knit community where people feel like they can belong and have an identity. That is generally what I took from this documentary. It really feels like this scene was this Smash Brothers competitive scene was like a very nice, tight knit community, which was cool. Which is always cool, I guess, to see. There's this random guy, yeah, with the random guy with the Australian accent is basically what I'm talking about. He shows up every now and then. I have absolutely no idea who he is, and then. My final complaint, despite liking this a lot, 4 out of 5, is that it kind of gets weird at the end, where you have an episode, like you introduce these 6 people, and I feel like they're introduced very well. Then you get to, actually, I don't know if this is in order, but then you get to Mango, who's like the final of the 7 characters to introduce, and it feels like you don't really get a good introduction. He like comes out of nowhere, and there's also a bunch of other people who are introduced, and it feels like you don't really get many explanations or as in-depth explanations as you did for all the previous characters. Yeah, it feels strange. Like I don't know what it's. Yeah, I would just if I was doing this series, I would like make the character introductions a lot more clearer and probably dedicate more time to the Mango section because it felt very rushed. But yeah, I feel like I didn't have too much to say about this. A lot of my notes were just like recap, but generally, yeah, I thought it was entertaining. I learned a lot, and if there was ever a sequel to this, I'd love to see it. Or if there's any documentaries like this about other, I was going to say if there's any about other games, but I think this particular documentary might work for me in particular because I have played Smash at least. Like I have a general understanding of the game, and I can appreciate how difficult it is, and I enjoy playing it, the very limited amount I have. So I don't know if I would enjoy documentaries about other games that I haven't played. But maybe like a League of Legends one, because I don't play it, but my friends all play it, so maybe I'd get something from that. I don't know. But yeah, that's the Smash Brothers. So now my 2023 ranking so far, which I've decided to exclude the rewatches. Like I took out Minecraft from this, and I've removed Mushoku Tensei because it's a rewatch. But basically, we got Black Mirror was the best of the bunch this time, followed by Vinland Saga, Star Wars Visions, Devilman, and then the Smash Bros. And then in the 3 out of 5s, we got RWBY Volume 9. So that's that. So now, YouTube videos, I guess. So, the first one is from Jarky Bacon, The Power of Human Connection, 1K subscriber special. So, I guess I should preface this by saying that this is a very personal video for Bacon, and Bacon is a friend of mine, all right? So I'm going to preface this by saying that I'm going to analyze this like any other video. So some of the things I say might sound like cold or detached or like not heartless, but like you know what I mean. I'm going to analyze this like a video, so keep that in mind, all right? But basically, the premise of this video. Firstly, let me say it's a great video. The premise of this video is that Bacon talks about 3 real life stories about human connection, and he interweaves it with 3 pieces of media that have taught him lessons about human connection. Basically, they taught him lessons, but he only appreciates them in retrospect, I guess. That's the premise of this video. And I actually have a quote here, believe it or not. I've done my research. These three series I've mentioned were all trying to teach me something I didn't fully grasp. The power of friendship, of human connection, of those from different cultures, from friends, the power of human connection from family, and all these connections matter. So that's the gist of this video. So yeah. Now, I want to talk about this in two aspects. The first is story-wise, and then I want to talk about it production-wise. And then maybe like miscellaneous stuff. But just addressing the story, basically there's three real-life stories that he talks about, and then like an extra one at the end. The first is about a friend at church a friend from church, I guess, who died of a heart attack. Then you have a friend from school who died of cancer. Then you have a grandpa who developed dementia, and the passing of the family dog as well. So those are the stories, and they're all very engaging. I guess that's my biggest takeaway from this video, which is I have also told Bacon this, like when I talked to him about it, but it's a very engaging video. Like the stories he tells from beginning to end, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm like, where are these going? I think I wrote a note on this, but I don't know if it's scripted or unscripted, but it feels like this is so difficult to convey in an engaging manner that it has to be scripted, I imagine. But he does a very good job of making it sound natural. It was very well done and very engaging. But yeah, sorry, those are the real life stories. The three pieces of media are She-Ra, which is about taking off your mask, is like how he summarizes it. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is about giving up your alchemy. And Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is about being an avatar. And meaning like understanding the people around you, basically. Like Iroh would do. So what notes do I actually have? So my first note is about the framing of this entire video. So he starts with like a spoiler warning for the three series, basically, which is great. But he also ends with saying this video may not be a happy one, basically, which is really interesting because when I went into this, I had no idea. I'm like, okay, it's a 1K subscriber special. Maybe he said it's called The Power of Human Connection. Maybe it'll be a big thing about how all the friends I made along the way to making these YouTube videos or something. And all the commenters I see regularly or something. But no, when he frames it with like, this may not be a happy one, it has me on the edge of my seat. I'm like, what's this going to be about? So I think that was a really genius, like tiny little bit of framing for the people actually paying attention, I guess, to this spoiler warning. That was cool. So about the first story, very engaging, because we don't know how it ties into everything. I think it is very good that he didn't give too much away, like in the framing of this video. Like just saying that it might not be a happy one is enough, I think. Like for instance, what did I say? Basically, when he's saying this first story, talking about this girl, it feels like something big is gonna drop. Like he's gonna have some like something where it's like, oh, this is a plot twist or something's gonna be revealed. But I don't know what it is. Like the things I was thinking is, okay, so maybe this is Bacon's girlfriend or something, and finally he has a girlfriend. And it's like, wow, big deal. Or maybe, oh, this was someone he was interested in and he got rejected or something. And the other thing was, oh, maybe she died or something. And that was the least likely of these options. Yeah, it's the fact that we don't know what the answer is that and that it's framed to be something potentially sad is what keeps me so engaged. I really like that. Then what do I have? I have the delivery of two lines. I guess there's a few things I pointed out which I think were particularly really interesting, like really well done. The first is, yeah, the delivery of two lines. One was Lydia died 6 months later. I thought that was very well done. And I lost them while moving houses. That was also a very well done line. And another aspect of the stories in general of all these stories was having the memorial service over Zoom. That was another crushing reveal where I'm like, man, that would have sucked. Yeah. And then, yeah, how he lost the watercolors moving houses. Terrible, but I already talked about that. But you know what? He found them in the end, so you know it's not that bad. Then the stage 4 cancer. The reveal of how he initially thought that the diet was working and he thought of it as a good thing, but then the crushing like reveal of how like the irony of how he it's because he has the cancer that he's losing the weight. It's a great delivery to like deliver this as like a plot twist. I don't know how to say this, but I thought that was very effective storytelling. What else? I guess in terms of scripting wise, what else? Right at the end when he looks at the camera and he summarizes the message basically, like become an avatar. I thought that was very good scripting and well positioned right at the end and like very affecting. Then I said Lamau. He talks about making all these friends. Yeah, he talks about making. I don't know how much anyone listening to this knows about Bacon, but he basically talks about how he made all these friends, and it culminated in him making this quiz video, that led to him losing his drive to make videos, which to me is just so funny because I know how long it took to make that video and how it truly did take a big toll on Bacon. It was so funny to hear it again. Yeah. Anyway. And then I said, "Oh shit, I mentioned," because I told him that the Vinland quiz was good, which it was good. All right, if you're a Vinland Saga fan and you haven't heard of Jarky Bacon somehow, go watch his Vinland Saga quiz. What was it called? I don't remember what it was called, but go look it up. You'll find it. Then my last thing about the scripting, or like I guess framing of the everything, is that at the end, the best part of this video is when he's singing a song at the end, basically painting. I don't know if you'd call it painting. I guess, yeah, painting. I guess colorizing this sketch here, and he starts crying. And once he starts crying, it's like it's hard to stop, and it's not like a graceful kind of crying. It's like a hyperventilating kind of ugly crying. You don't see his face or anything, but you know what's happening. And this is like the most relatable part of the story, which I'll talk about in the miscellaneous bit. How I couldn't relate directly to any of the stories, but that's the bit I can relate to the most, which is about how like something. You'll be perfectly content singing this song, thinking about things, but just once you've gotten over that like threshold of sadness or whatever, you'll cry, and you can't stop it. It'll happen, and when it happens, it happens, and that's what's going to happen. And yeah, very. I'm so glad he included the bit at the end. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the scripting wise what I thought. Production wise, let me see. I thought this was great, very interesting, experimental, like different camera angles and stuff, and very well made. Let me see. However, I actually have one criticism here, which is there's something about the narration of the introduction section that doesn't quite work. And yeah, it's very hard to put into words, so I'll read out exactly what I thought about. So I said, I think there's a mismatch between the tone of the words, the tone and the words. Like, it feels like Bacon is doing a very serious narration with a lot of like gravitas behind his words, and he's trying to make it sound very impactful and everything in the introductory section where he's like narrating the Avatar bit. But the words he's actually saying don't feel like they match the gravity of the tone of like how he's saying them. So it kind of makes it feel a little cliche, or like too not there's that mismatch basically between the gravitas and the words. I don't know. I feel like that's what's happening. And basically, I think it's only for the introductory section, because then he goes into the main scripted, unscripted, I don't know if it is or not, stories. But then when he goes back to the other media bits, they're fine. Like it works perfectly. I think it's just the introduction that has that issue. And I said it might work better with more casual narration, like the rest of the video. So instead of being very serious and having gravitas in your voice or whatever, maybe having a more casual narration in the beginning, or having another person do the narration. Maybe that would have been better. Or another character, like putting on a character or something. I don't know. And I said it's jarring to go from the scripted narration to the more natural narration of the real life stories. I guess that's another aspect of that that was an issue. Then I said, however, the remaining media sections are good. It's really just the intro. So yeah. I said there's really cool visual framing of the footage of the table tennis game. So yeah, initially it's like I don't know how to say it. It's like small, cropped, and like vignetted or whatever. Like it's got the darkness around the edges, and it feels like a memory basically, like a core memory, like part of like a very something you'll remember forever. It was very well done. I enjoyed how that was made or shown. So I just have a rant. There's not really much of a rant, but basically in the first scene with him on camera, he's holding this microphone basically, and he's talking, and I think it works very well. However, when I see stuff like this, it's a very common trend on like TikTok or YouTube or whatever. You see like a millennial with like a tiny microphone, and they're holding it in front of them, and they're talking into it. Or they have like a coffee mug or something, and they're holding it like a prop, and they sip from it every now and then. I hate that. I hate it so much. It's like it's so like performative and like oh, I'm cool, aren't I cool? I'm a millennial. How cool am I? Like I got this tiny microphone and I got this coffee mug I sip from. I hate it. So luckily Bacon escaped from that by using a normal microphone. So I would have been criticizing him so much if he had a coffee mug or if he had a tiny microphone, but he didn't. Anyway, I also like how he doesn't look at the camera. I'm sure that was probably an intentional choice. I think it works very well. Um, like for all these scenes, I think he doesn't look at the camera. They're all great. Very little music used, if any. I don't think there's any music during his stories that he's telling, and I think that's very effective. I'm glad he didn't put like emotional music to like kind of boost the emotions behind it. I think it's more authentic and more impactful when you don't have music in those retellings of events. Then I said, I wonder how scripted these stories are. It feels completely off the cuff, but to me, it feels like way too engaging and way too like it's a good story. So to me, it feels like it can't be off the cuff. Like it's way too engaging for that. So I would assume it's scripted, but I don't know. Then I said all the scenes have cool framing. So the first one, he's like in frame, very like focused and like bright lighting, but he's not looking at the camera. I like that. Then the second one is like he's blurred. He's in another room. The painting is above him. That's really cool as well. I like that. And then the final one is like close up, dark lighting, looking to the side. Really cool as well. So I like that production wise. So generally, yeah, both story wise and production wise, I think this was a really great video. And I recommend this to if you don't know Jarky Bacon, I would still recommend listening to this. It's a very engaging video regardless. Like, I wonder if I was going to say, if you take out the 1K subscriber special, maybe that would feel like a bit like, if I saw this video and I didn't know what it was, this would probably turn me off it. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to see some guy's 1K subscriber special. But don't be turned off by that, all right, guys? Just go watch this. It's really cool. But then I have a few miscellaneous notes about me, all right? Let's make this video about me, which is that I've never had anyone in my life die. Not grandparents, nothing, all right? So I'm sure it'll happen. It'll happen eventually, maybe soon, who knows? But so I can't relate directly to any of these stories. My one memory I have of like something death related is that I went to, I don't even know if it was a funeral. I don't think it was a funeral, but I went to my extended family, I guess me, my like grandparents and other weird relatives, I don't know, went to some grave of some relative who I don't know who they are, but that's my closest I've ever gotten to like being to an actual like someone dying event. I don't know. So yeah, I can't relate in that regard. And my thought is, I wonder if someone close to me did die, I wonder if I would be very emotionally impacted by it. Like right now, logically thinking, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't, like they're dead. Dead is dead, you know. When someone's gone, it's like they're gone. Why am I going to care about it? Like me being sad about it's not going to help at all. And that's honestly what I think would happen. However, I also thought that about my cat, all right? But then my cat, out of nowhere, suddenly got sick, and it looked like they were going to die. And I was a mess. Like, I just suddenly had, I started crying out of nowhere, and it was like, it was surprising how logically, I feel like, why, it's just my cat. Like, if they die, they die. You know, what am I going to, I can't do anything. I'm doing the best I can to look after them and everything. But when it actually happened, it was a bit different, and I did feel quite... it did get to me emotionally. So I feel like there's a contradiction there between what I logically think and what I emotionally feel. But anyway, I thought that's just a fun anecdote to talk about. Another thing is that he talks about his grandpa quite a bit and having a strong connection with them. And it was interesting how he talks about how his grandpa was a good speaker, or he spoke a lot back in the day. And that's also something I can't really relate to, because to me and my grandparents, there's a big language barrier where I can talk to them. Like they talk English and everything, and I can talk a little bit of Armenian, but they mainly will talk Armenian. So it's there's a little bit of a language barrier, which it's a small one, but even that small one has like a big impact on how you see them. And they don't feel like your peers, you know. They feel like they don't feel like professors you've seen in the past. They don't feel like they feel like family with a slight language barrier, I guess. I don't know how to say it, but there's some like communication, a very slight one, that makes it feel a bit different to like what typical people who have no language barrier feel like with their grandparents. So I don't know. And then, my final thing is just like a comment. No one's going to understand this besides Bacon, because I made a comment about this once in a Discord server. I basically said that I hate it when YouTubers are making a video and they're talking with their nice like YouTuber voice, and then suddenly they talk about serious subject matter, and then they like change. They try and talk more respectfully, and they talk a bit sadder, and they're like, oh, you know, and unfortunately 10 people passed away, and they talk like this instead of like talking normally. And I hate it when people do that. Now, it doesn't apply in this case. Bacon probably thought I was talking about him, but I wasn't. Because I don't like it because it feels ingenuine and it feels like you're just trying to appease the masses and make it sound like you're not being disrespectful. And that's not, obviously that's not why Bacon is talking softly in this. He's talking about softly because it is a personal thing for him and it does affect him. If he was talking about someone else's story and he was talking respectfully or quietly like this, like if I was doing what I'm doing now and I was like couching my language and being like soft spoken and everything purely because this is Bacon who I'm talking about, I can't do that. It makes me cringe just thinking about it. So it's just like a weird thing I have. I don't know. Maybe other people have it. I don't know. But yeah, he passes on that regard. All right, no issues there. But I thought I'd bring it up. But that was The Power of Human Connection by Jarky Bacon. 40 minutes. Next up, another Jarky Bacon video. Can you believe it? 2 Jarky Bacon videos in 1 month. What a record. So this was an AMV, Invisible Friend, Vinland Saga. I was going to say that maybe this came out before the final episode. I don't remember. I don't think, maybe not. But yeah, this was good, I'd say. I'm not a big AMV guy, I would say also. Despite I love making AMVs. I've made 2 of them. I don't watch any. I was going to say, like, maybe besides the one of Bacon here, I don't know if I've ever seen one. Like in its entirety. Obviously, I've seen some like over the years. I see TikToks every now and then, but I don't know if I've ever watched the full AMV. And I've also never heard of the song he used here, or at least it doesn't ring a bell. Maybe it's from some media thing I've seen, but it's not ringing a bell for some reason. But I don't know. But yeah, it was good. It was just an AMV. It's basically, I guess the message I took from it is like, I said in my notes, I said it's an OVA because I keep mixing up AMV and OVA, showing the path that led to Einar and Thorfinn shaking hands in front of Arnide's grave. So basically, the framing of this video is initially you open with the scene of them shaking hands, and then you revisit the past of these characters and see in a nice, like, emotional to the music kind of edited AMV showing the path that led to that. And I thought that was great. Then, let me see. I have 3 notes. I like the bit where the music gets more intense and you're seeing all the fights and the people dying and crying in farmland. Yeah, I did like that. Like, it starts off, despite all the bad stuff happening with Thor's dying and all that, and Thorfinn in the prologue, I think it is the most sad in this video is when you get to farmland and Arnide's dying and all these people are fighting and Einar's crying, and that's when I think this video peaks kind of in its emotions. I thought that was great. I said I dread the thought of having to collect all these clips. I can't imagine making a 4-minute AMV. That would be a nightmare for me, just having to get all those clips and edit it like this. My god, it's a monumental effort, but he did it. Well done. And my last note is just like I love the idea of adding sound effects to like the sword hits and the Thorkel swinging his log and everything. That's a great idea and it works very well. I never would have thought to do that. But yeah, it was great. So yeah, overall, if you like Vinland Saga, if you like AMVs, probably more than I do because I'm not a big fan of AMVs, go watch it. It's great. So now we have What is the Appeal of Anime by IG Studio. Last time I said YGG Studio, but I think Kyle Entertainment has told me it is IG Studio. 9 minutes long. And this was, recommended by Kyle Entertainment. And I'm actually struggling I watched this like, whatever, the last day of the month. Generally my takeaway was it's a perfectly fine video. Like, I don't think I got anything from this, like, positively or negatively. It was just a perfectly, like, passable, okay video. I think the general message was about how anime, the appeal of anime to her at least, is that it can appeal to a very niche group. Like, it doesn't have to, like today, like in a lot of media, it has to appeal to a mass audience and be the most general thing that will appeal to the most people. Anime exists in a very wide variety and it can appeal to very specific groups. Like, for instance, I think she talks about Dragon Ball, where it's in the entire universe, it's like 400 episodes or something just on this one particular story. And you don't see things like that in the West, basically. So yeah, I think that was, there's not really much to say. I guess my last note is that there's no background music and it's just simple edits with a bunch of clips. Like, both message-wise and production-wise, it was perfectly just passable, I think. So I guess this is an upgrade from my last IG Studio video where I did not like it. This was at least passable, all right? So well done. But the next one is the de-evolution of the Tsundere by IG Studio again. and this was 8 minutes long. So this was again recommended by Kyle Entertainment. I did not like this video actually, but no, it's not like out of a rage of like not not agreeing with the ideas or anything. It's just that I think it's a pretty poorly made video, I guess I would say. Like I think I watched this like 4 times all the way through because I just kept losing, like not being able to pay attention, and things would always, like I wouldn't understand what's going on at times. And I wrote here that I'm surprised this has 400,000 views. Like it feels like a very kind of mess of a video. Like I don't know how people followed this. Like maybe there's like this video is more for like very hardcore fans who understand the history of tsunderes or like are really involved in the anime scene, whereas I'm not that involved, I guess. Like I have a general idea of a tsundere, and this video does not clarify it or make it any clearer to me at all. Like I don't think it once at all she defines what a tsundere is. It's very ambiguous and hard to follow. But let me see my notes. So yeah, you need a much clearer introduction where you set up the storyline of the video. Are you going to make a point? Are you just going to go over the history of tsunderes? What exactly is this video going to be? I guess that needs to be made a lot clearer, I think, at the beginning, or in the conclusion, I guess, if you wanted to do it that way. But yeah. And then I said, does she even define tsundere? Who is the audience of this video? Yeah, I guess I've already talked about that a little bit. Then she makes like a pretty crazy, like ridiculous point about how she describes the childhood friend archetype, which is like where you got 2 people growing up together in a small town, and they're expected to marry each other, and eventually they maybe they go apart, but eventually they'll marry each other. And she says that the point of stories like this is to help young people navigate life, like live out basically this story in their life and help them get through a situation if they're in a situation like this. And that's like what a weird claim. Like, why do you really think that the people making this are making it to help people in similar situations? Like, that's a ridiculous claim in my opinion. I feel like the point of things like this are just because it's an engaging story to watch. I don't know. I just couldn't vibe with that point at all, I guess. But I guess that's it. I really don't have much to say. This was a confusing video. I feel like I don't have any better understanding of anything after watching this. I don't know what a tsundere is now. I'm a bit less clear than I was before. And I'm very surprised by how popular this video is. I don't know what audience particularly found this interesting. So yeah, I guess that's this video. Okay, so now we have the best anime ever, One Punch Man by Best Guy Ever. So this is 14 minutes long. And again, recommended by the great Kyle Entertainment. But now, before I say anything, every time Best Guy Ever gets brought up, I need to preface by saying that I both love and hate this man, alright? On one hand, he made Gabby Gang, which is like the greatest video I've ever seen on YouTube, right? It's like a song about Gabby, and I love Gabby in Attack on Titan. So I love him for that. On the other hand, he hates the best episode of Code Geass, which is not only the best episode of Code Geass, but probably in my favorite top 20 anime episodes of all time, right? Bloodstained Yuffie. And he hates it. So I hate him for that. But my note here, my summary of this, is that this is an absolutely enjoyable video. This guy is a good YouTuber. Like I can understand the appeal of Best Guy Ever. He is very, like, this was a well-made YouTube video. And he even made one point that I thought was interesting. I wasn't expecting anything I thought this was just going to be a general, like, why One Punch Man is good because it's, like, well-made and everything. And I think this only came out, like, right after the anime finished airing. So I'm like, I've probably heard all this discourse before. Like, I'm a big One Punch Man fan. But he made one unique point about the nature of Saitama's power. So he talks about how he just basically, something I took for granted is, like, how villains are made in this universe, monsters, I guess. And he talks about how monsters are made by overindulgence in something. Like the crab man is made by eating too many crabs. The lizard man is made by, I think, liking lizards too much. And this guy likes building cars too much, so he becomes a car monster, basically. And he basically, Best Guy Ever, ties this into Saitama is an extension of this idea, basically. How Saitama became strong because he got obsessed with being the strongest. And it kind of ties in really well with the rest of this universe. And I was like, wow, that's a really novel point I'd never thought of before. And I mean, the obvious, like, I guess my interpretation is that clearly this is just one. The author's name is One. This is One's type of humor, where it's like, oh, if you eat too many crabs, you become a crab, and that's just like a joke. But it is cool how it does. You can come up with a theory like this, which ties One Punch Man Saitama to this idea. So I thought that was really cool. But other than that, do I really have much to say? He makes one suggestion about like you can make One Punch Man more compelling by having a big established character actually die. And I kind of disagree with that. Like I see where he's coming from. People always make this point about things, how character deaths like add to the tension or whatever. But I feel like One Punch Man isn't really about the stakes. Like the tension isn't that much. Like it's not that important. So I don't really agree with that point, I guess. What else? Oh, my last note is just a very small production element thing, which is that there's a particular song he plays when you're seeing the backstory of Tatsumaki. Like she's holding a prison door in front of her, I think maybe with her powers or whatever. But and there's a giant monster on the other side, and the music you see, the music he plays during that part of the video is very emotionally evocative. Like it actually, I was like, wow, this poor girl, like suffering through this trauma. So I don't know, just production wise, I think it was a good choice of song. I have no idea what the song is, but I think it was really well done for that scene, and also the rest of the Tatsumaki stuff in this video. The music was very good. Yeah, I said it really makes you think there's more to her character than there seems to be on the surface. And he did a good job of pulling that out in the production of this video, even if it is a very small aspect of this video. But yeah, generally, this was good. I'd love to... I say that I would love to watch more Best Guy Ever videos, but I know that I'm going to forget, and I'm not going to look it up. But yeah, he seems like a good YouTuber, right? Even if he is dumb about Code Geass. Next up, and final video, final thing on this entire digest is I Have an Opinion About Doctor Who by Endless Jess, 6 minutes long. And again, recommended by Kyle Entertainment. And my first thing is that I think I've seen part of this a while ago, because when I started this, I was like, this feels familiar. I feel like I've seen this before. And this was a great video. Yeah, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, right? But the production, my biggest thing about this is how the music and the narration, the music enhances the narration. Like when he, for instance, he uses the Master's theme, and the Master is like a character who goes crazy, basically, in Doctor Who. It's like it's like it's very like unstable kind of music, and when he's like going on a rant and saying crazy things and stuff, he's playing the Master's music, and it makes him sound crazy. And it's like a meta commentary on how although my points are genuine, the way I'm portraying them is kind of crazy and like kind of unhinged, and I think that works really well. And like the constant change in music throughout this video to match kind of the way, the tone of what he's saying, and kind of make fun of him even when he's saying things. I thought that was really cool. So production wise, this was a great video. But so the general gist of like the thesis of this video is to not spoil Doctor Who regenerations, because the BBC loves to do it. There has never been a Doctor that has been the Doctor without a giant build up of like a few months at least, and maybe a year or so of announcing that the next Doctor is going to be this actor. So I have two minds on this point. On one hand, when I was in high school and the 12th, well, technically the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi, when his regeneration was announced, I was the hypest shit in the world, right? I was excited. I was reading all the news articles, watching all the interviews. It was the most exciting thing ever. So on one hand, I kind of disagree with the video where the value I got from seeing, like learning about Capaldi and learning about this new actor who's going to change the franchise and everything, and seeing him in the 50th anniversary and stuff, that was really cool. That kind of, the joy I got from that probably exceeded anything that I would have got from a surprise like regeneration, I guess. So I disagree there. But on the other hand, I do kind of, I concede that I agree with, it would be really cool to have the Doctor suddenly regenerate without expecting it. Like it would up the stakes of the show a lot. I completely agree. It would be cool to do it at least once. Yeah. So I can both disagree and agree, I guess, with this video. Now I have a big note here that I don't remember. So he said, he argues that knowing the BBC would make a big announcement about the Doctor changing actors means that the Doctor can't regenerate, and that undermines the story. Yeah, but okay, basically he's saying that he knows as a fact that the BBC is always going to announce beforehand that the Doctor is going to regenerate at the end of this season, for instance. So there's never a surprise because there's never any tension for the Doctor because you always know he's going to survive at least until the end of this particular season, because you know that if there's no announcement, then you know he's not going to die because the BBC would obviously make an announcement about it. So I generally agree with this. However, to play devil's advocate, I think there's always the potential. Maybe you can delude yourself. Maybe that's what it is. But there is always the potential that they are keeping it a secret and they will one day do this thing. And how you can always have this naive kind of optimism when you're watching and the Doctor gets shot, for instance. And in your mind, you can be like, well, I mean, the BBC would have announced this, so he's probably not going to die. I mean, unless they're keeping a secret, and this is like a big thing, and there's a big deal, and maybe he will die. And you get like that, at least me, when I'm watching, like, for instance, The Impossible Astronaut, when Matt Smith gets shot. In my head, I'm like, oh my god, he might actually regenerate. Like, they might have actually done it. This will be the big reveal. Like, this could be a big surprise that the BBC didn't tell us that Matt Smith is going to regenerate. And that moment in my mind is enough. Like, he doesn't actually have to regenerate for that moment to have value. I think it's the value I get is from the potential that it could happen. And I think this also kind of ties in with the I wish it happened kind of aspect, if you've ever seen a Kyle Entertainment video about it, where it's like when Jamie is charging at Daenerys in season 7, episode 4 or whatever, and you're like, maybe it could happen, even though you know all by all rights your storytelling intuition should tell you that obviously Daenerys isn't going to die here. You just have that brief moment in your mind, and it applies here as well, where it's like maybe the Doctor will regenerate, maybe the mad lads at the BBC have done it. So that's my devil's advocate, where it's like maybe it doesn't matter that much because maybe they will surprise you, and the potential for them to surprise you is all that it really takes to get value in the fake out deaths. I don't know. But what other notes do I have? Oh, my final note is about, I think he basically got what he wanted. This video was ahead of its time because very recently, in the most recent episode of Doctor Who, the Doctor, it's not a surprise that the Doctor regenerates. It was announced that the Doctor was going to regenerate, but the Doctor regenerates into the wrong person, and it regenerates into Doctor Who. Not Doctor Who, the David Tennant. And that was a surprise. I had no idea that was going to happen. So I wonder if Endless Jess here, firstly, if they didn't give up on the show, I wonder if they would have been, like, gotten their wish, because basically that is what happened. They didn't announce it. David Tennant, everyone knew David Tennant was coming eventually, but no one knew that it was going to be the new regeneration of the Doctor, and that was a big surprise. I don't know, maybe they got what they wanted. But yeah, that's that video. I enjoy it. I'm glad there's some Doctor Who videos out there. It's one of my biggest fandoms I'm a part of. Yeah. Oh, now I guess I should also say, because I didn't do many suggestions this time purely out of being very busy and not feeling very well. So I am keeping a list, don't you worry. So Norco, Yamada's First Time, Look Back, Firewatch, The Garden of Sinners, Top Boys, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and Atlanta was suggested, but I'm telling you right now, there is no chance I'm watching it because apparently it's a comedy, and I'm not watching a comedy TV series, all right? And I already have started Norco, so that'll probably be done soon. But yeah, that's my list already. And if you have any suggestions, movie, anime, TV shows, games, books, YouTube videos, whatever, suggest it. And if it fits this criteria, I will almost certainly consume it. If not this month, then eventually at least. So anime, 12 episodes or less. Movie, if it isn't a comedy. TV shows, 6 episodes or less. And games, 6 hours or so to finish. Whew. All right, but yeah, that's... Jesus. That's this month's digest. Thank you. And see you next month.